Chapter 10:14. Flickering World, Dawn Star Cluster. This was the area completely controlled by the army and the first stop in the flickering world. The fleets of countless organizations flooded in, making this star cluster countless times livelier, slowly turning this new territory into a galactic society. Benefits were everywhere in the flickering world. Every star cluster had a huge gap in business. It mainly depended on where the foreign organizations chose to develop. The transit stations at the entrance of the star field had huge profits. Many organizations and galactic residents scattered toward the transit stations in the entry area to look for opportunities and business as soon as they entered the star field. More organizations went their separate ways to develop in the later star clusters. Among them, the Moto Civilization's fleet was also one of the members heading toward the later star clusters. Their goal was to develop the territory of the third and fourth phases. The reason was simple. The later star clusters would take less time to develop. Not only would there be more gaps in business in various fields, but the dynasty's control would also not be as strong as the star clusters that were developed earlier. This was especially important for supercluster civilizations. The supercluster civilizations knew very well that the dynasty would not let them develop comfortably. Therefore, almost all the supercluster civilizations gave up on creating trouble in the first and second phases to a certain extent and focused on the fourth phase of the plan. Now, any normal person could see that the few star clusters to be explored in the fourth phase would be an important competition stage for the foreign organizations. In the command room of the main ship, a tall figure stood in front of the podium and looked up at the star map. His facial features were deep, and he had a cold and firm temperament. His expression was serious, and his lips were tightly pursed. Roddick, a senior general of the Moto civilization. He was currently the highest commander of the Expedition Fleet. The Expedition Fleet was the name of this fleet. It was a new fleet built by the Moto civilization specifically for the flickering world. A large number of elites were mobilized, and Roddick was able to stand out and command this important fleet. Clearly, the upper echelons of the Moto civilization had high hopes for him. "Your Excellency, how long until we pass through the area of the first and second phases?" A Moto person wearing an official's uniform asked. This person was a senior civil official of the Moto civilization. His name was Lagos, and he was the supervisor of the expedition fleet. He was in charge of supervising Roddick. Lagos did not have any real power, so he could not interfere with Roddick under normal circumstances. The people from the galactic black market represented by Beast Ancestor and Secret Master, as well as some neutral beyond grade a few beyond grade as from Radiance and Ethereal, have also made private deals with us. There's probably an order from the upper echelons to use us as cannon fodder to divert the dynasty's attention and waste their energy. Lagos could not help but sneer. Radiance and Ethereal's heart were known to all. The supercluster did not mind being used because it was temporarily beneficial to them as well. Even if there are allies, they will have to wait until we pass through the first and second exploration phases. "I'm worried that the dynasty will attack us before that," Roddick said in a deep voice. "You have to know that most organizations are taking the Black Star Core route. There aren't many allies taking the detour like us. There's a hired beyond grade A coming from the rear to protect us. The upper echelons persuaded him to take the detour with benefits." "Who is it?" "A neutral beyond grade A from Black Hole Edge, Garose, nicknamed the Head of Golems." "That summoner? I've heard of him." Roddick operated the star map a few times and marked the location of Garose's fleet. It was not far behind the expedition fleet, following them from afar. This made him feel much more relieved. "In that case, we won't have to worry about anyone attacking us." Roddick's eyes sparkled as he coldly said, "With our armed forces, as long as the dynasty dares to send people over, it's hard to say who will be the one attacking who." At this time, a communication request came in. It was a call from the three kings of the Modo civilization. The two of them straightened their bodies and accepted the call. Three figures appeared on the virtual screen. Your Excellencies. The two of them immediately bowed. What's the situation now? The Modo leader of the three kings asked with a deep voice. The expedition fleet had not entered the flickering world for long. As the leader of a civilization, it was obviously too impatient for them to ask about the situation now. However, the flickering world was too important to the supercluster civilization. This was a strategic opportunity for them to completely turn the situation around. Furthermore, they had offended the dynasty a long time ago. Now that they were in the other party's territory, the three kings of Modo could not sit still. We're still on our way, Roddick replied with a serious expression. Did you run into any trouble? Everything is normal. No matter what happens, focus on protecting the logistics team, the Modo leader instructed. The armed fleet existed to protect the logistics team. The logistics team carried all the necessary resources and equipment to develop the star field. The armed spaceships could be used, but if something happened to these important resources, it would be troublesome. Although they could replenish the resources from the temporary strongholds in the shattered star ring, it would greatly slow down the development and construction speed. The organizations in the flickering world were all competitors. If they were one step slower, they would suffer a huge loss, which would affect the Modo civilization's strategy. Riddick nodded to show that he understood. He said with a serious expression, he said, Your Excellencies, please rest assured. I won't let the enemy succeed, boom. As soon as he said that, the entire flagship shook, and the crew members in the command room all fell to the ground. Roddick also staggered and grabbed the table to stabilize himself. He was both shocked and furious. What happened? Reporting to the commander, many unknown fleets are rapidly approaching and launching attacks at us. The radar showed that fleets had appeared in all directions at the same time. There were many of them, forming an encirclement and firing at them. Furthermore, the alarm also indicated that the enemy had set up a large number of space stabilization anchors in this area. They had fallen into this trap, and their hyperdrive state was directly interrupted. This was where the tremors came from. Even the internal stabilizing device of the spaceship could not completely resolve the impact of such a high-speed stop. Countless crew members fell to the ground. There's still some distance from here to the next Stargate. Is this an ambush? Lagos was shocked. They were just discussing the possibility of an ambush, but now they were talking about the enemy. Who are the enemy? Roddick asked. No idea. The enemy's spaceship is a common model, and there's no logo on the armor. I don't know which organization it belongs to. The observer was nervous. The Three Kings' communication had not been cut off yet, so they saw this scene and all frowned. The Modo leader said with a serious expression, Roddick, I'll leave this to you. You must defeat the enemy. Understood. Roddick's expression was resolute. He immediately started commanding the fleet and issuing orders. The expedition fleet immediately responded. They shrunk their formation to protect the logistics team while firing back. The size of the fleets of the two sides was about the same, and the Modo civilization even had the advantage. Roddick displayed his superb commanding ability. Very soon, the Modo civilization stabilized their position. Although they were ambushed, Roddick did not choose to break through but chose to fight in a defensive position. His confidence came from the fact that his armed fleet was stronger, and the fact that Garros was following him not far away. As long as Garros arrived at the battlefield quickly, he would be able to fight back with his advantage as a beyond grade A. Roddick's combat style was unyielding, and he would seek revenge. He was talking to the Three Kings when the enemy suddenly attacked him. Compared to running away, he preferred to defeat the enemy. I'll get Garros to join the battle immediately. Lagos also reacted. He hurriedly took out his communicator and walked to the side to summon people. Okay, make it quick. Roddick sneered. No matter who they are, they won't be leaving so easily. At the same time, Garrot's fleet also discovered that the Moto civilization's fleet was attacked. Someone really attacked them? I thought it was persecutory paranoia. In the command room, Garrot could not help but mutter. This was not the first time he had been hired by a supercluster civilization. As a neutral beyond grade A without any backing, this was an important source of profit for him. Not only the Moto civilization, he had also been hired by 7 other civilizations to protect the troops of these organizations. The competition between foreign organizations in the flickering world would not be lacking in military strength. Everyone knew that this place would soon become a paradise for mercenaries. Even many beyond grade as had entered the sea. Your Excellency Garrot, what do we do now? Should we rush over and help? The deputy beside him asked. Garrot nodded. He had no objections to taking someone's money and helping them out. However, just as he was about to give the order, the sound of an incoming call came from the communicator. Beep beep beep. Garrot lowered his head to take a look, and a look of surprise immediately appeared on his face. It was actually his personal communicator that was ringing. Who would call at this time? Garrot took out his communicator and looked at it. His pupils constricted. The caller shown on the screen was Black Star. The two of them had never interacted before. They had only met at the meeting of the gods and exchanged private numbers. I wonder why he's looking for me. Garrot suppressed the doubts in his heart, walked to the side, picked up the call and asked cautiously, Your Excellency Black Star, what's the matter? There is indeed something I need your help with. Han Zhao's laughter came from the communicator. Please speak. I need you to stand by and do nothing. Stand by and do nothing? What do you mean? Garrot did not react for a moment. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he understood. Attacking the Moto civilization's fleet, could it be? Han Zhao interrupted him and asked calmly, Can you do that? Garrot felt bitter in his heart. Now that the Black Star Corps was involved, things would not be so simple. The Moto civilization would most likely suffer. He did not want to get involved in this from the bottom of his heart. However, he was at the edge of the battlefield. If he did not do anything, it would definitely ruin his reputation. Garrot's expression was a little troubled. Your Excellency Black Star, I've already accepted the Moto civilization's employment. If I don't do anything, it doesn't seem right. Han Zhao spoke calmly with an expressionless face. You can't get involved in this. If you don't want to cause trouble, then back off. Then, without waiting for Garrot to reply, he hung up the call. In my territory, you have to listen to me. Han Zhao was not going to argue with the Moto civilization. You're the one I'm going to beat up. What's wrong? Sure, don't come to the flickering world if you dare. The army had been operating in the flickering world for so long, and it was currently the largest organization. If it was not domineering, who was? Garrot's expression froze, and he was secretly surprised. In his impression, Black Star was a very friendly guy. He did not expect his tone to be so tough this time. Looks like things are more serious than I thought. With my small body, if I interfere rashly, I'm afraid I won't be able to handle it. Also, Black Star's threat, if I don't take it seriously, won't I follow in the footsteps of that seven-eyed guy? Garrot could not help but shudder. This time, the deputy walked over and asked, Your Excellency, Lagos is already urging you. Do you want to give the order? Garrot hesitated for a few seconds before suddenly waving his hands. Don't help. Just watch from here. The deputy was shocked. Seeing Garrot's firm attitude, he had no choice but to have the fleet wait at the edge of the battlefield. Sigh, I've lost out this time. Garrot smiled bitterly. He was just an ordinary beyond grade A. He could not afford to offend someone at the level of Black Star, be it in terms of strength or organization. Being forced to retreat with just a few words was very embarrassing. Garrot also had the dignity of a strong person, and he did not want to back down. However, facing the ferocious Black Star, he could not straighten his back at all. After stepping into the Beyond Grade A realm for so many years and not making much progress, Garros already knew his limits and was not willing to provoke a peak beyond Grade A. He was just a neutral person without any background. If someone wanted to kill him, they would have no qualms. Furthermore, in the meeting of the gods not long ago, Black Star had taken on the mission of maintaining the communication platform for all Beyond Grade As. Just this identity alone made him have to give face to Han Shao so that it would be easier for him to rely on him in the future. Time passed minute by minute. The expedition fleet and the ambushers were locked in a stalemate. The command room of the main ship was busy. Roddick issued a few orders, and when he finally had some time, he immediately turned around and yelled at Lagos, "Garros, what's going on? We're about to miss the opportunity. Why aren't they here yet?" Lagos was sweating profusely. "They stopped directly. I've urged them many times, but they just won't join the battle. I don't know why either." The reinforcements that were right in front of him were retreating at the last minute. He was completely dumbfounded and could not understand. Outsiders are not reliable at all. Roddick was furious. He slammed the table and said, "Don't wait for them. Everyone, listen to my order. Change tactics and attack the enemy's formation." However, before the order was sent out, something unexpected happened. The logistics forces of the Moto civilization, that were heavily protected by the armed fleets, suddenly went into chaos. The logistics spaceships rammed into the armed spaceships around them like crazy and moved in all directions, instantly creating chaos on their side. "What's going on?" Roddick's expression changed drastically. Something had happened to the logistics team, and he immediately panicked. Report, the artificial intelligence of those logistics spaceships has been breached. They're out of control. We've lost contact with the crew. As if waking up from a dream, Roddick was furious. He clenched his teeth and squeezed out a voice. "Damn it, a Beyond Grade of virtual mechanic." Chapter 10-15. The logistics fleet mainly consisted of transport ships, cargo ships, and industrial ships. Although they were also equipped with weapons and shields, their agility and firepower were not comparable to combat spaceships of the same level. Therefore, they stayed in the center of the formation and were protected by the armed fleets outside. At this time, a portion of the logistics spaceships were virtual invaded and rammed into the corvettes from the inside, tearing apart the formation of the expedition fleet. The weapons on the ships were not idle either. They attacked the corvettes from the back. As the armed fleets outside did not inject too much energy into the shields at the back, many of the formations fell into chaos. Control those spaceships that have lost control. Steady, steady. The other spaceships, strengthen the artificial defense wall immediately and increase the frequency of system self-checks. Roddick had no time to think about anything else. He quickly commanded the fleet to deal with the emergency. Beyond Grade of virtual mechanics had always been a killing machine in galactic wars. Any fleet would have a headache if they encountered such an enemy. The only way to solve this problem was to turn off the artificial intelligence of all spaceships. However, the command system would be paralyzed, which was no different from suicide. Currently, the spaceship control and communication system based on the quantum network was the best in the universe. Although other artificial intelligence and communication systems, such as magic and biological systems, existed, they had more shortcomings. For example, if one used magic to transform a spaceship into an alchemical organism with consciousness, the cost would be many times more expensive. The efficiency of controlling the spaceship would be far lower than quantum network technology, and the communication distance and efficiency would be incomparable. At the same time, there would be more weaknesses. The encryption would not be as good as the firewall of the quantum network, so it would be useless against mages and psychic. All the civilizations in the universe had ways to prevent virtual invasions, but the effectiveness of these methods mainly depended on the strength of the opponent. Facing Han Xiao, who was now a peak beyond Grade A, the Modo civilization's artificial intelligence defense methods were obviously not enough. They could only delay the time when the other spaceships were invaded, but they could not really stop Han Xiao. No matter how hard they struggled, their defenses would still be broken through one after another, and Han Xiao would inject data into them. Furthermore, it was almost impossible to take back the spaceships that Han Xiao had taken control of. On the battlefield, the expedition fleet had no choice but to split off a portion of the fleet to control the chaos caused by the spaceships that had lost control. The situation became very chaotic. With both sides being attacked, the Modo civilization's fleet gradually could not take it anymore. A portion of the spaceships that had lost control broke through the formation and ran out. They were seized by the attackers, while the other spaceships that had lost control continued to charge forward, launching suicidal attacks. Not only did they attack the corvettes that had surrounded them, but they also attacked the logistics spaceships that had not lost control. In order to stop the damage, Roddick had no choice but to get his men to destroy some of the logistics spaceships. Seeing the logistics spaceships carrying a large number of critical resources turn into fireworks in space, his face twisted. Now that the flickering world was filled with people, although this route was remote, there were still people passing by it. The energy fluctuations from the battlefield spread out and quickly attracted the attention of many passing fleets. Most of the people were afraid of getting involved when they saw such a large-scale interstellar war. They didn't dare to stay and quickly took a detour to leave. However, some organizations approached carefully and watched from afar. When they saw the symbol of the Modo civilization's fleet, they could not help but discuss in the wide area communication channel. The Modo civilization's fleet was attacked? Who did this? They actually dared to provoke the supercluster civilization and seemed to have the upper hand. We've only just entered the flickering world, yet they can mobilize so many troops. We can basically confirm that the attackers are from the dynasty's side. The attackers hid the symbol of their organization. We don't know who they are. Tisk tsk, they hid their identity to not leave any evidence. Don't talk nonsense. Be careful not to get into trouble. These passers-by were just watching, and no one would interfere. No one wanted to get into trouble. The battle was intense. Roddick ordered his fleet to move as they fought, and the battlefield moved closer and closer to the next Stargate station. The Stargate station was guarded by the dynasty's fleet. Although Roddick knew that the attackers were definitely related to the dynasty could not openly attack the Modo civilization. Otherwise, the negative impact would be too great. Not only would it violate the dynasty's promise to open the flickering world freely, but it would also leave a political weakness. Under the influence of the superstar cluster civilizations, he was very clear about the nature of the three universal civilizations. In his eyes, the three universal civilizations were not only hooligans but also bitches who had to establish a good reputation, wanting to justify their ruling position. Now that there were so many onlookers, Roddick knew that the dynasty's fleet at the Stargate station would have to come and help. Therefore, as long as he got close to the Stargate station, he would be able to force the attackers away. The fierce battle lasted for a while before the attackers finally stopped attacking and retreated from the battlefield. They entered hyperdrive mode one after another, turning into streams of light and disappearing from the radar. The enemy ran away. Seeing this, Lagos' tense body finally relaxed. He hesitated and said, "Should we chase after them? We can't. This isn't our territory." Roddick's expression was ugly. Although he was furious, he did not lose his rationality. He clenched his teeth and said, "Clean up the battlefield and count the losses." The losses were calculated very quickly. The adjutant walked to the side and reported carefully, not daring to look at Roddick's face. Report: we lost 8% of our armed frigate. 29% of our armed frigates suffered varying degrees of damage and are undergoing nano repair. The logistics team lost 37% of our spaceships, 15% of which were captured by the enemy, mainly transport ships. Roddick's vision turned black. More than a third of the logistics team was gone. They had lost a lot of resources. This ambush had caused them too great a loss. A huge loss. This is outrageous. The faces of the Moto 3 kings were as dark as the bottom of a pot. They did not hang up the communication the entire time and witnessed how the expedition fleet suffered heavy losses. The three of them had high hopes for the expedition fleet and Roddick, but they had suffered such a huge loss right after entering the flickering world. The three kings' disappointment and anger toward Roddick were beyond words. "I'm sorry, this is my fault." Riddick quickly turned around and gritted his teeth as he took the pot. As the commander, there was no way Roddick could get rid of this blame. He had fallen into the trap, and he could not blame the enemy for setting up a trap here. No matter how good the reason was, a huge loss was a huge loss. It was a fact that he did not protect the logistics team well. If he still tried to explain, it would easily leave the three kings with the impression that he was shirking responsibility. Therefore, no matter how frustrated he was, he could only swallow it. "We let you lead the expedition fleet because we trusted your ability, but your current performance makes us wonder if this is the right decision." The three kings scolded sternly. Roddick did not dare talk back to the leader at all. He stood there and took the scolding like a grandson. He could only promise that he would be more careful in the future. After a round of scolding, the three kings told him to deal with the follow-up problems quickly before hanging up the communication with a dark expression. Only then did Roddick stand up straight. His face was green, and he was so frustrated that he was about to explode. He knew that he had already left a bad impression on his superiors. If he could not make up for his mistake, his future would definitely be bleak. The atmosphere in the room was cold. Everyone looked at Roddick with fear. Originally, they needed Roddick to continue giving orders to the fleet to carry out the next step, but no one dared to take the risk. Lagos coughed, braced himself, and said, "There are only a handful of supermechas in the Empire. Although the other party used virtual intrusion, they did not show themselves. Based on the efficiency of the other party's virtual intrusion, I think it's most likely Black Star. There's no need to guess. It's him." Roddick's tone was cold and filled with anger. "Unfortunately, we have no evidence." So what if we have evidence?" Roddick interrupted him and clenched his teeth. Even though he knew that the attackers were most likely the Black Star Army, it was of no use. The flickering world was their territory, and with the few people he had, finding trouble with the Black Star Army would be equivalent to sending their heads to their graves. Earlier, Roddick had tried to board the ship and capture the other party's crew members as evidence, but the attacker had kept a distance and did not allow him to do so. However, in his opinion, even if he had evidence, it would not affect the Black Star Corps much. In the flickering world, the local tyrant, the Black Star Corps, could do almost anything they wanted. Although the Moto civilization was a supercluster civilization, their base was in the primeval Star River, far away from the shattered star ring and the flickering world. No matter how strong they were, they would not be able to do anything to the Black Star Corps. Furthermore, they were not a universal civilization with a bunch of beyond grade A allies, so they could not do anything to Black Star himself. The result was that even though he knew who the enemy was, he could not fight back. He could only watch as the enemy targeted him. Roddick was so frustrated that he was about to explode. Thinking of this, Roddick's mood worsened. He took a few deep breaths, turned around, stared at Lagos, and said angrily, "Contact Garros for me. I want to ask him personally why he did not join the battle." Now, he could only find someone to vent his anger on. However, Garros was indeed responsible. He was so close, yet he did not join the battle. Roddick did not know what was wrong with this little brother of his. Lagos had no choice but to contact Garros again. The call went through very quickly, and Garros' figure appeared on the screen. Roddick roared, "Give me a reason!" Garros frowned and said with an expressionless face, "Watch your attitude." Facing Black Star, who he could not afford to offend, his attitude was filled with respect and without confidence. However, when facing Roddick, he immediately regained his beyond grade A status. The only thing missing was the word cold written all over his face. Just one word, real. "Why are you watching from the side? When the time comes, I will ask your superior to terminate the employment." Garros did not explain and hung up the call directly. When he accepted the employment, he thought that the mission was only to deal with the competition from other external organizations. He did not expect to offend Black Star. This employment became a loss for him, so he did not want to do it anymore. Even if he had to suffer a loss for breaching the contract, it was better than getting involved in the conflict between the Moto civilization and the Black Star Corps. Since he was about to terminate the employment, he naturally would not tell anyone about Black Star. Since he had chosen to stand on one side, he would follow through to the end. Furthermore, he did not want to admit that he was afraid of Black Star, so he did not want to tell anyone the reason. However, this arrogant attitude made Roddick's blood pressure, which had finally been lowered, soar again. "Oh, do you think my position is not high enough and you don't even want to explain the reason to me?" A bunch of asterisks holes. Roddick was shaking with anger. He repeatedly clenched and unclenched his fists with an ugly expression. Lagos had a worried expression. "We've lost a lot of equipment and resources. We can only mobilize the inventory of the strongholds behind us. This will definitely slow us down and affect our strategy too much." All the organizations were competing. How much potential profit would they lose if they fell behind from the very beginning? Lagos did not even dare to think about it. His heart was bleeding. It could be said that the development plan of the Moto civilization in the flickering world was completely messed up by this wave of attacks. At this time, the Dynasty Patrol Fleet, which was responsible for maintaining law and order, finally arrived. They sent a communication request, and the image of the Imperial officer appeared on the screen. "We detected the energy signature of a battle. What happened here just now?" Roddick took a deep breath, and with a gloomy expression, he recounted what had just happened. The Imperial officer nodded. "We're aware of the situation. We'll send people to follow up immediately. We'll inform you as soon as we have any news." Then, the Dynasty Patrol Fleet turned around, spread out, and chased in the direction of the attackers. It looked like they were following their duty, but both Roddick and Lagos knew that the Dynasty's pursuit would not yield any results. At the same time, some of the attackers stopped in a certain area and entered stealth mode. They gathered the captured logistics spaceships and started to move the resources on them. The captured Moto civilization crew members were all chased into a spaceship that blocked all communication signals. All of their equipment was confiscated, and they stared at the armored warriors holding weapons around them in fear. At this time, an armored warrior walked out from the crowd and took off his helmet, revealing a baby face. It was Nero. Seeing him, the crowd was in an uproar. Some of them had seen Nero's information and immediately understood that the attackers were from the Black Star Corps. Nero looked around and tried his best to put on a dignified expression, but this only made his baby face look cuter. "There are two paths in front of you now. First, death. Second, give up your freedom in exchange for life and work for us forever." The crowd fell silent. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded. "Aren't you afraid that we'll betray you?" Nero narrowed his eyes. "Who's speaking?" As soon as he said that, a short Moto person walked out and said in a low voice, "I'm the deputy logistics manager of this trip, and I'm also the leader of the technical team. I'm a senior engineer." Nero's eyes sparkled. He seemed to have caught a senior technical officer of the enemy. You don't have to worry about that. You won't have the chance to come into contact with the outside world and will forever be shadows of the army, Nero said slowly. We won't force those who are unwilling. The hatch is right beside you. Jump into the universe yourself. Now make your choice. It seems like we don't have any other choice. The deputy logistics manager had a helpless expression. Everyone looked at one another and did not hesitate much. Everyone chose the second path. Very quickly, Nero picked out some of the technical talent. These people were all useful and would secretly work for the army in the future. As for the other non-technical crew members, according to Han Zhao's intentions, they would be sent to the Kundi race's planet. As for whether they would become slaves or be torn apart by the Kundi race, it did not matter to him. After all, they were just there for the Kundi race to vent their anger. These people were able to participate in the expedition of the Moto civilization, so they were basically soldiers. Perhaps they did not know about the Kundi race incident, but they were definitely not innocent. It was only right for them to repay the debt of the civilization. Revenge required revenge. There was no such thing as mercy. Han Xiao, who was on his way to Black Star Palace, received the news from Philip and nodded with satisfaction. It'll be even more difficult for the Moto civilization to develop in the flickering world now. Han Xiao had ordered his fleet to attack the Moto civilization's expedition force in disguise. As long as he did not leave behind any concrete evidence, even if the other party knew that he was the one who did it, it would not affect him. He did not plan to wipe out Roddick's fleet, so he could not completely wipe out the Moto civilization's hope. Only by making them continue to invest resources in the flickering world would he be able to carry out his long-term revenge. Otherwise, if they really did not come to the flickering world, he would have to go to their territory to deal with the Moto civilization in the primeval Star River. Now that the Moto civilization would replenish their resources, it would be a long time. Cutting meat with a blunt knife was the most torturous. Don't ask, you'll be the king of torture if you do. In his previous life, in version 4.0, the competition between external organizations would become more and more intense, and there would be more and more incidents of hiding one's identity and attacking other organizations. Today, I've fired the first shot in the flickering world. A gleam flashed across Han Zhao's eyes. Just wait. This is just the beginning. There will be plenty of good juice for you in the future. Chapter 10:16. Beep, beep. Just as Han Xiaoxin was thinking about this, his communicator rang twice. It was a call from Terakov. He picked up the call, and Brother Tarakov's face appeared on the screen with a smile on his face. Black Star, well done. I like how decisive you are. The external organizations were not sure who the organization that attacked the Moto civilization was, but the dynasty obviously knew that it was the Black Star Corps. You don't like me when I'm different? Han Xiao looked calm on the surface, but he was chuckling in his heart. Don't forget to fulfill your end of the deal and compensate me with resources. Taking revenge on the Moto civilization was also what the dynasty needed, and they were prepared to make an example out of them. Because it was not suitable for them to take action personally, the dynasty borrowed Han Zhao's strength. Of course, they would not let the Black Star Corps work for free. They had already signed an agreement in private. Black Star would be responsible for educating the Moto civilization with force, and the Red Empire would pay resources as compensation. In the eyes of the dynasty, this was hiring an ally to attack the enemy, but in Han Zhao's eyes, it was using the dynasty's money to do his own mission. He could even earn some extra benefits. Don't worry, we haven't gone back on our word yet. Terakov smiled and asked, how do you plan to deal with the captives of the Moto civilization? Some will stay in the army as secret labor, and the rest will be thrown to the Kundi race's territory. Old Terakov nodded. No matter what, cut off all their channels of communication with the outside world and make them disappear forever. Don't leak any information. The success rate of breaking my information blockade is close to 0. There's no need to worry about that. That's true. You're a virtual mechanic after all. I'm overthinking things, old Tarakov said with a smile. Actually, it's not a big deal. I just want to give you some instructions. In any case, please increase your efforts against the Moto civilization. I'll be going first. The communication was hung up. Han Shao curled his lips in his heart. To disturb him for such a small matter, there was probably a hint that the dynasty knew about the movements of the Black Star Corps. It was probably to tell him not to mess around with anyone else other than the Moto civilization, or maybe it was also influenced by the meeting of the gods. TSK, scheming again. Han Shao put away the communicator and threw this matter to the back of his mind. He walked to the fridge in the room, opened the door, and took out a sweet concentrated nutrition bar. He nibbled on it like a snack while thinking about another problem. Now, all the players were rushing to the flickering world, and the shattered star ring was the closest. It would not take long for the army players to arrive at the flickering world first. Now that the version had just started, the players still needed some time to adapt before they could gradually get on the right track and compete with each other. In his previous life, players fought for their respective factions. Other than a few famous national wars, the reason for fighting under normal circumstances was either due to conflicting faction quests or to snatch the resources of other guilds. In such an environment, solo players found it increasingly difficult to survive. Hence, there was a general trend for players to group up, which led to more and more players establishing guilds. According to the statistics in version 4.0, the number of guilds was on the rise. The more time passed, the more guilds there would be. The turning point for the explosive growth of the number of guilds was a famous event. A few large guilds in America, led by the Devil World Club, jointly established a formal organization recognized by the outside world. Through bidding, they obtained a super opportunity that other players fought over and obtained official authorization. After that, the players began to value the role of guilds more and more. They began to group up on a large scale, and the guilds formed a formal organization recognized by the outside world. Then, as an organization, they used business, diplomacy, and other means to cooperate with the organizations in the universe. As such, the role of guilds was very obvious. The resources that they could obtain were many orders of magnitude higher than ordinary players. This playstyle existed in the previous versions as well, but it was only in version 4.0 that it became popular and ushered in a turning point in the players' lives. The reason was the increase in the strength of the players in version 4.0, which caused a qualitative change in their influence on the universe environment. Only then did they have the capital to establish their own organizations and be valued. Now, because the faction advantage that I gave the army players is too big, the players from the other star fields will very likely work together to suppress the army players' advantage. When everyone adapts to the new version, the army will definitely be at a disadvantage. After all, there are too many opponents. Han Shao pondered. Since the army players had the advantage now, he did not mind giving them a push and letting them lead to the end. Originally, all the players would need some time to adapt before they gradually entered the stage of forming guilds and organizations on a large scale. Han Shao planned to let the army players enter the era of full guilds in advance. This required some incentive system adjustment. Han Shao thought for a while, summoned Philip, and proposed a new system that was only targeted at the players, the immortals. Through making contributions, farming contribution points, to advance to a high-level profession and satisfy the super grade of grade B or above, they would be qualified to form a new type of battle team. The number of members must not be less than 2, and there was no limit to the number of members. The team could be named. After the formation was completed, they could report to the army. Every month, According to the completion of missions and the total contribution points of the team members, they would be awarded special team merit points. Team merit points could be used to exchange for large-scale resource supplies or other things, such as equipment, knowledge, and skills. There was also an important use, which was that they could be used to exchange for various levels of agency qualifications in the Army's various businesses. They could also be used to bid for some special projects or exchange for the mining rights of some resource planet. There were many uses that leaned towards this. Not only that, as long as they accumulated enough merit points, they could choose to become an affiliate organization under the Black Star Corps and have a certain degree of independence. After that, the merit points could be used to request for the Army's support, or to exchange for the Army's authorization, using the Army's name to do some strategic operations that were not illegal, or to provide a strategic plan application for joint operations between the two sides. It was equivalent to having a part of the right to speak and cooperating with the Black Star Corps as a semi-independent organization. This should be about right. Han Shao looked at the outline of the new system several times and nodded. The purpose of this system was to legalize the player guilds. Originally, guilds only existed among the players and were not recognized by the Galactic Society. For example, the Temple of God Guild. NPCs did not know of the existence of the Temple of God Guild, let alone who was a member. However, this system was to allow the player guilds to be directly recognized by the Army system and become an official organization with records. This way, the player guilds would become a real organization in the universe. The purpose of the team merit points was to stimulate the interest of the Army players in establishing guilds. Without needing to adapt to the version, many people would try to play this way, especially the official guilds of the powerful clubs. They would definitely submit applications. In his previous life, in version 4.0, there would always be players who would leave the NPC faction and establish their own organizations. With this new system, at least the inclination of the Army players to do so would be greatly reduced. The price was to give the player guilds a certain degree of independence, and there would be a certain amount of unrest in the Army. However, at this time, giving the players more freedom was the only way. With the increase in strength, the treatment would naturally increase as well. Han Shao did not think that he was a black-hearted boss. Even if he wanted to squeeze them dry, he would give them enough money. Version 4.0 was the turning point of the players' careers. From this point onwards, the players would become restless and spread the flames of chaos everywhere. He could not control the players as much as he did in the previous versions. He had long planned to change this and give the player guilds a chance to develop. He would take out more resources to support the player guild. Only in this way could the players, who were more and more unwilling to be restrained, continue to work for him. At the same time, this system would also attract foreign players to poach the leaks of Old Wang next door. Killing two birds with one stone, he could have both. Master Hum, are you sure you want to release this new system? Philip sat on Han Zhao's collarbone like a little elf, his big eyes blinking as he looked up at the side of Han Zhao's face. Release the announcement first. Han Shao planned to officially release this system after all the Army players arrived in the flickering world. Before that, he would first let the players prepare in advance and call their friend. Okay, Han Shao paused, suddenly thought of something, and said, "Some time ago, I studied the logic structure of Rista and had some new ideas. I'll update them for you in a few days to increase your computing power." Hearing this, Philip's eyes sparkled, and he flew to Han Zhao's face. He hugged Han Zhao's nose, placed his chin on the bridge of his nose, and looked into Han Zhao's eyes. "Philip loves Master the most, Don't act cute with me." Han Shao raised his brows and flicked Philip away from his nose. The news of the Moto civilization being attacked spread like wildfire in the flickering world. Many organizations were discussing this matter in private. This news also reached the ears of the other supercluster civilizations. Many supercluster civilizations immediately held meetings. Moto being attacked was most likely done by the dynasty. The two of them are fighting so quickly. Will this be the dynasty's first step against our supercluster civilization? Doesn't look like it. It seems to be a personal grudge between the dynasty and Moto. After we pass the first and second regions, we'll help Moto when we have the chance. We can't let the dynasty beat them too badly. Because they knew that the three universal civilizations would not let them develop in the flickering world, most of the supercluster civilizations had already formed a secret supercluster alliance in private to resist the evil intentions of the three universal civilizations. Moto being attacked, according to the agreement, the other supercluster civilizations had all decided to lend a helping hand at the right time. Although this matter did not seem to have anything to do with them, the Supercluster Alliance did not want to give the dynasty a chance to take them down one by one. Although the Moto civilization was their competitor, resisting the pressure of the three universal civilizations was the most important task for the Supercluster Alliance. Everyone knew that they could not be divided internally, so they did not mind helping their competitor. Only then would they have a chance to break the three universal civilizations' blockade of the new field. With the army and the dynasty covering for them, no witnesses discovered any traces of the attacking force. After a while, the Black Star fleet that attacked the Moto civilization finally gathered and returned to the Geru star cluster through a secret passage. They sent the selected captives to the Kundi race planet in the Odoran star system. With the help of the Black Star Corps, a large number of cities were built on every colonial planet, so they did not lack living resources. The Kundi race had been resting for more than 10 years. Although they had not walked out of the trauma of the war, many of them chose to enjoy peace and live a good life. In the past few years, all communication between the colonial planets and the outside world had been blocked. The residents of each planet could only log into the network of their planet's server, so they knew nothing about what was happening outside. They were like isolated islands in the universe. The army and the dynasty controlled all the media channels and did not allow private media to exist. The Kundi race could only accept the dynasty's cultural transformation in literature, music, movies, and so on, using various entertainment channels to subtly change their thinking. Living such a quiet and numb life, they had no chance to resist, and anger was useless. Many people only had helplessness and resignation in their hearts. However, today, the official channel that was broadcasting cultural transformation programs every day suddenly released a piece of news that made countless Kundi race members excited. His Excellency Black Star has fulfilled his promise and taken revenge for the Kundi race. He has captured a group of captives and is about to send them to the colonial planet of the Kundi race. This news immediately caused an uproar. Although this generation of the Kundi race was powerless to resist, they had not forgotten their hatred. Compared to the dynasty, they hated the mastermind who used the Kundi race even more. When the time came, countless Kundi race members arrived at the designated landing port early and looked up at the sky, waiting for the arrival of these captives. Spaceships broke through the atmosphere one after another, and more of them landed at the port. The hatch opened one after another, and batches of Black Star Corps soldiers walked out with unarmed captives. The captives that were sent over had all been filtered, and those who were too strong were eliminated. The captives were all wearing the same prison uniform, and all their belongings had been confiscated. They were of no threat at all. There was a sea of Kundi race members around them, and the captives could not help but feel nervous when they saw so many ferocious creatures surrounding them. What planet is this? Why did they send us here? What are these creatures? Are they beasts? They're wearing clothes. They're intelligent creatures. Why are they all staring at us? It's a little scary. Using the Kundi race was a secret of the upper echelons, and these ordinary soldiers naturally did not know about it. Many of them did not even recognize this species, and could not help but feel confused. They did not understand why these intelligent creatures were staring at them. Right at this moment, a rock suddenly flew out from the crowd and smashed into the head of a Moto captive. But this captive groaned and hurriedly covered his head. Before his companions could react, countless items flew out from the crowd and smashed into all the captives. Cries of agony could be heard as the captives were smashed one after another. The Black Star Corps soldiers at the side looked on coldly and only acted after the captives were smashed for a while. They activated their shields to block all the flying objects, and the ground was quickly filled with items. Although no one died, the captives were still in shock. Why are they smashing us? Why did the Black Star Corps send us here? The captives looked around anxiously and finally understood why the eyes of the Kundi race were filled with hatred and anger. Right at this moment, an army soldier at the side snorted and said coldly, "They're the Kundi race, a native civilization of the flickering world." During the second exploration phase, the Moto civilization secretly made use of the Kundi race to instigate a conflict between them and the dynasty, resulting in the destruction of the Kundi race. All of you are their enemies. Stay here and atone for your sins. After hearing this, all the captives fell silent. Their eyes were wide open, and their faces were full of shock. Sending us to the territory of our enemies, is this to vent their anger on them? You said that you would give us a way out, but you want us to suffer a fate worse than death? It's over. Every captive had a gloomy expression on their face, and they did not dare raise their heads. They were pushed forward and sent to the prison on the land vehicle. The land vehicle slowly left the dock, and from the start to the end, the surrounding Kundi race members stared at these captives. The crowd did not disperse for a long time. After a while, someone said softly, "Back then, Black Star said that he would seek justice for us, and it was actually true. I didn't expect Black Star to always keep his promise. I misunderstood him. It turns out that he's such a noble person." Many of the Kundi race members sighed. Over the past decade, the Black Star Corps had managed the planet and provided them with countless living resources. Coupled with the promotion of the entertainment industry, the Kundi race was already very familiar with the army. In terms of feelings, the Kundi race did not have much hatred for the Black Star Corps, but not many of them believed that Han Zhao's promise was just a perfunctory one. After all, the current Kundi race was just a bunch of prisoners who could not resist. Why would Black Star waste his energy to seek justice for them? After more than 10 years, they had probably forgotten about this matter. Just when they had lost all hope in him, Han Zhao used his actions to prove that he was not joking. In the eyes of the Kundi race, Black Star immediately became the only hope for their race to seek justice. While the Kundi race was pleasantly surprised, they all felt gratitude toward Han Zhao. There was even more anticipation in their hearts. The impression that Han Zhao gave them gradually changed from an irrelevant figure to a benefactor. "Black Star, you're a good person." Chapter 10:17. The Stargate built by the Black Star Corps was the first choice of countless foreign organizations. It had become the most popular and convenient route in the flickering world, with countless spaceships passing through it every second. The reason for this was that the Black Star Corps' territory was very large, including 2 border star systems in different directions. They had built stargates that connected directly, so there was no need for them to go through other territories, saving a lot of time. Secondly, Han Zhao's familiarity with the star map was showing its effect. In the territory he chose, there were a lot of transportation hubs and strategic locations. It was the most prosperous area in his previous life, and now, it was rapidly regaining its glory. The financial groups that invested in the Black Star Army also began to receive returns. Han Zhao promised to hand over a portion of the businesses in the territory to these investors. Now, there were countless financial groups that stayed in the army's territory to do things, so the business in the army's territory quickly became richer. More than half of the foreign organizations chose to pass through the Black Star Corps' territory. Of course, Han Shao would not provide a free service. A large number of spaceships entered the Geru star cluster every day, and he collected a lot of toll fees. The stargates spat out a dense stream of light, forming a blurry silver rainbow that did not dissipate for a long time. At this time, spaceships with the Black Star logo flew out from the Stargate and followed the crowded fleet. This is the entrance to the Black Star Corps' territory. Every battleship carried a large number of army players, and they were all squeezed in front of the porthole with curious expressions. Planet Blackgate came into view. Compared to the cold and cheerless image that the players had in mind, Planet Blackgate was now bustling with life. Countless spaceships were taking off and landing, and the flow of people was dense. The surface of the planet was endless, and countless lights were like a curtain of jewels covering the planet. And beside it, there was a silver rainbow hanging diagonally in the universe, extending all the way to the end of the line of sight. This was the trail of hyperdrive flames left behind by countless spaceships passing through. The spaceships flew past like meteors again, and because they were so frequent, they did not dissipate. It was like a line that could not be erased was left on a black canvas by a silver-colored pen. It ran through the entire Stargate route as if it had become a guide. Planet Blackgate, the gateway to the Black Star Corps' territory, the landmark of the Geru star cluster, Maple Moon softly read the information displayed on the communicator. It's so lively. It's completely different from the previous version. Mad Blade could not help but sigh. Only when he personally arrived at the army's territory did he feel that the changes in the army were like a dream. Mad Blade was one of the earliest players to follow Black Star. He had experienced every step of the Black Star's rise, and he found it hard to believe that his faction had really developed to this point and had such a vast territory. Just looking at the size of their territory, it was equivalent to 10 star system civilizations and could even be compared to some star cluster civilizations. How terrifying! In his eyes, Black Star's thigh had become thicker again. Just as his imagination was running wild, Maple Moon softly asked, "The Flickering World is a world server, and we arrived earlier than the players from the other star fields. This period of time is very important. Do you have any plans?" "Don't worry. The Guild will first register as a subsidiary organization in the Army, and we will follow the Guild's orders. We should be able to go to the 4th exploration phase to seize the opportunity," Mad Blade said. "I didn't expect the Army to release such a revolutionary system. This will almost make the Guilds independent from the Army, and the faction affiliation will become more flexible. The gameplay will be completely reformed. This is of course a good thing for us, but from Black Star's perspective, I don't know what he's thinking. Why is he willing to give up his power?" Maple Moon could not help but mutter. Even after so many days, she was still shocked. "It means that my previous guess was right. As the overall grade of the players increases, our influence on the universe will become greater. It seems like this version will be the turning point." Mad Blade had an expression that said, "I'm very smart. Quickly praise me." Originally, many players were confused about how to take the lead in the current Flickering World. However, the new system that Han Shao released not long ago immediately pointed out a clear path for all the Army players. Team merit points were practically tailor-made for the development of Guild. Almost every Chinese guild with a name decided to register as an official organization in the Army. Similarly, this also set off a trend of building guilds. During this period of time, countless Army players called their friends to form guild. Han Zhao's approach was extremely effective. The fleet continued forward, flying for a period of time, and arrived at Black Star Palace. This was also the first time that the players saw this new main base built during the version update. Its grand scale made many players gasp in amazement. The first batch of players to arrived at the outermost ring of the base, and gathered in a hall. Philip had summoned them here for inspection. Not long after, two figures walked in. All the players present turned to look at them in unison, and their spirits were lifted. The two of them were Army Commander Han Shao and the Army's second beyond Grade A, Hela. Wow, long time no see. Hela is getting more and more beautiful. This face, this figure, this aura. Please let me die here. Save it, it's all nonsense, laughing emoji. I miss the feeling of being beaten to death by Hela. Maybe this is love. No, this is perverted. Women? Boring. Only a strong man like Black Star can make you feel so good that you can't breathe. A large group of players rushed up to get close to them. The words "I want to gain favorability" were clearly written on their faces. Hela was surrounded by countless people, and was even more popular than Han Shao. Han Shao cursed in his heart for being sexist. Before the impatient Hela started her massacre, he took the initiative to push the people around away, clapped his hands and said with a deep voice, "Silence, I have something important to say." Hearing this, the players gradually quieted down. Pairs of curious eyes stared at Han Shao. Han Shao cleared his throat and slowly said, "Now that the flickering world is open to the outside world, the exploration of the new star field has entered a new stage. The peace of the past no longer exists. In the future, there will be countless disputes surrounding the resources of the new star field. Our Black Star Corps also needs to adapt to this change. I believe everyone already knows that the Army has recently issued a new system. This is the first step of change. Everyone here is my hometown and comrade in arms, growing together with the Army. The Immortals are very important to the Army. You've all contributed greatly. I've decided to give you more independence. I hope you can use your talents and make a name for yourselves." As soon as he finished speaking, many of the players looked at each other in shock. They were greatly surprised. This seemed to be the first time Black Star had talked about the Immortals to them. Before this, although they worked for the Black Star Corps, they did not feel that they were very important. The outside world called them Immortals, but the Army commander did not seem to have talked about this in public. He had always treated them like normal members. In version 1.0, the Germinal organization had already studied the players. Until now, there were still similar situations. All the players had always known that their immortality mechanism might arouse the curiosity of the NPCs. However, in the eyes of most people, this was just a method to increase the sense of realism. They did not pay too much attention to it. However, now that they suddenly heard Black Star say this, the players present had an inexplicable feeling. It was as if something that they had ignored all this time had appeared in their minds again. They were really very unique. In their eyes, Han Zhao's image became even more vivid. Other than this inexplicable feeling, the players present were also very happy. To be able to hear the faction leader, Black Star, personally admit that they were very important to the Army, many of them were very excited. They could not help but have a subtle sense of accomplishment and belonging in their hearts. Han Shao looked around, taking in everyone's expressions. He suddenly smiled and said, "Don't be surprised. Although Hela and I are now beyond grade as, we're all from the mother planet. In this cold universe, we're all on the same side, so there's no need to be too formal with me. I have high hopes for all of you. Remember, the Black Star Corps will always be behind you." Hearing this, everyone's spirits were lifted. Mother planet. That's right, how could I forget this? Black Star has this layer of bond with us. Seeing Han Zhao's attitude, everyone felt that Han Shao had become even more amiable. In the crowd, Maple Moon was deep in thought. She quietly poked Mad Blade's waist and whispered, "Why do I feel that Black Star seems to have changed a little?" "Change? Haha, you're wrong. He hasn't changed at all." Mad Blade, however, had an excited expression. "This is the Han Shao I remember, not that cold big shot Black Star." His voice was too loud, and many of the pro players around could not help but look over. He's right. How long has it been since Black Star had close contact with us? Second Prince muttered. As Black Star's status became higher and higher, it was difficult for others to come into contact with him. I didn't expect him to still be as down-to-earth as he was in version 1.0. Sleepy Winter chuckled. It seems like he really treats us as his confidants. Many people discussed softly, but Pork Bun turned a deaf ear to them and focused on recording this scene. His face was filled with joy. Han Shao glanced at him discreetly and nodded to himself. In the previous versions, as his status rose, the opportunities for the players to come into contact with him gradually decreased. After 2 versions, his image was already a little cold. However, in version 4.0, the role of the players would become more and more important. Han Shao decided to become more down-to-earth and close the distance between him and the players, deepening the emotional bond between him and the players. This was an important factor that influenced the players apart from benefit. After all, he was a player in his previous life, so how could he not know about the G-spot of the players? Seeing the joy on the players' faces, Han Shao coughed and spoke again, finally revealing his true intentions. The competition in the flickering world has become very intense. I'm going to mobilize a fleet and head to the 4th exploration phase to compete with the external organizations. You can participate if you want. As long as a member of each registered affiliate organization participates, they will be able to obtain more team merit points based on the number of participants. They will also be allowed to build strongholds on planets in the Army's territory and be protected by the Army. At the same time, all goods in the Quartermaster Department will be temporarily sold at 30%. As soon as he said that, a faction mission popped up on the interface, and the eyes of the players lit up. Not only would there be a large faction main storyline mission, but they would also be given a 30% discount on the faction store and could even build a proper guild stronghold in the Army's territory. Black Star was indeed still that Black Star. This was the walking benefit. Seeing that the players could not wait, Han Shao announced the end of the meeting. The players dispersed and immediately ran to the Quartermaster Department to shop. The money they had accumulated in the previous version was still in their hands, and the wallets of the players were full. The 30% discount was a promotional method to stimulate the players to spend more. Although the players' current mentality was to level up, they would definitely be swayed by such a huge benefit. This was to harvest the experience of the players. Han Shao had not been idle in the past 20 years and had accumulated a wave of mission completion cards. He was currently level 307, and he had increased a little during the update. He would be able to advance once he reached level 320. The few star clusters in the 4th exploration phase were where the competition was the most intense. They were also the main stage for the players to fight in the world server. This was also to urge the players to gain an advantage in the 4th exploration phase to help the Army players maintain their lead and prevent them from being bullied by the foreign players. In addition, letting the guilds that had registered as proper organizations build their guild strongholds in the Army's territory was also a form of benefit binding. Their homes were all in his territory, so the cost of leaving the faction would be even higher. It's all a trick. I'm really a little naughty. Han Shao shook his head and chuckled. Leaving the hall with Hela, the two of them strolled around the army and chatted. At this moment, Hela suddenly spoke. Black Star, I'm also preparing to go to the 4th exploration phase to participate in the Army's exploration at the front line. Are you itching for a fight? Han Shao glanced at her. I'm not you. I can't remotely control my doppelganger at home. I want to spar with more beyond grade as, and this is a good opportunity. Hela nodded. After becoming a beyond grade A, she did not slack off at all. She knew that there was still a huge gap between her and Han Shao, so she still wanted to improve herself. It was not suitable to spar in the Shattered Star Ring. Now that she was in the flickering world, it was a good opportunity to train herself. Alright, then you'll be the fleet commander. Let me remind you, dozens of beyond grade as will be fighting in the 4th phase. For a long time to come, that place will probably be the most dangerous place in the entire universe. If you encounter someone you can't handle, inform me. My doppelganger will follow the fleet at all times, Han Xiao said. So many beyond grade as were not there for sightseeing but to fight for the benefits of the new star field. Without Han Xiao's restrictions in the flickering world, these people would definitely fight fiercely. Not only Hela, but Han Xiao was also preparing to have his doppelganger stay there permanently. After separating from Hela, Han Xiao walked to his room. Along the way, he opened the player forums and browsed through the movements of the players in the various star fields, admiring the elegance and easygoing nature of the idiotic netizens. After browsing for a while to relax, a new post was pinned at the top. Han Xiao took a look, and his eyes sparkled. It was the first issue of Galaxy Times since the release of the new version. GDX, after waiting for more than half a month, you're finally willing to update. Chapter 1018. Han Xiao clicked into the post, and as soon as he opened the video, 2 new hosts appeared on the screen, one male and one female. Hello players, I'm Ah Wei, the male host said. I'm Chui Hua, the female host said. This is the Galaxy Times, dedicated to sharing first-hand game information and protecting your gaming career. After the usual opening, the 2 hosts began the routine of every episode, trying their best to chat awkwardly. The new version has been online for more than half a month. Currently, the players of the various countries are trying their best to adapt. Compared to version 3.0, version 4.0 Flickering World has a lot of changes. Let me give you a preview in advance. Today's content is very substantial, and we will lead everyone to analyze the gameplay of the new version. Speaking of the new version, I thought of something. I have a friend. Before he finished, Chui Hua interrupted him. I know that friend is yourself. Please continue your performance. That friend of mine, he ran into a ghost recently. Where did he run into it? Awei was speechless for a while before continuing. One day, that friend of mine returned home after working overtime. It was already late at night, and his family was already asleep. He quickly washed up and went to bed hugging his wife. In the middle of the night, in a daze, he heard footsteps outside the door and Chui Hua suddenly interrupted with a weird expression. Wait, what does this have to do with the new version? Ahem, I'm just looking for an excuse to start a conversation. Don't mind these details. Continue. Chui Hua rolled her eyes. Only my friend and his wife lived in the house. He thought that a thief had broken into the house, so he quickly got up and turned on the lights. However, he did not find anyone else, and the door was closed properly, so he went back to sleep. However, when he woke up the next morning to go to work, he found that the door was already open with a gap, but nothing was missing in the house. He thought that he was dreaming last night, so he quickly woke his wife up and asked her if she heard anything last night, but his wife did not hear anything. Don't you think that's scary? He must have run into a ghost. Eat more green vegetables in the future. It's good for your body and mind, Chui Hua said. By the way, what would you do if you really ran into a ghost? I'll kill it with a wave of my flag. Do you think my materialistic halo is fake? After this interaction, the 2 hosts successfully pulled the players' excitement back to normal levels, and they all turned from elated to sullen expressions. Han Xiao listened to the awkward conversation with an expressionless face. The 2 hosts finally got to the main topic. Back to the topic, version 4.0 Flickering World has been released for half a month, Awei said. The specialty of this version has already been revealed. That's right, the world server. Chui Hua, Yes, after the baptism of 3 versions, players from all the countries can finally gather together and play in the same star field. This is a major change in gameplay, and I can foresee that this version will be very lively. It is very likely that there will be a national war, and it will become a fierce battle between players from all the countries. Speaking of foresight, I'm reminded of the prediction made by the Galaxy Times in the last episode of version 3.0. At that time we speculated that version 4.0 would fully activate the cross-star field function. Now, more than half of our speculations have come true. The only thing we did not guess was the activation of the world server. Due to the appearance of the world server, the players of the Shattered Star Ring have 2 natural version advantages. The first is geographical location. As the 2 star fields are adjacent to each other, the players of the Shattered Star Ring can come to the world server earlier than the players of the other star fields. The second is that the players of the Shattered Star Ring have a unique faction advantage. Yes, among the factions that the players are qualified to join, the only faction that came into contact with the Flickering World in the previous version was the Black Star Corps, which included most of the players of the Shattered Star Ring. They followed the army to participate in the first exploration phase of the Flickering World and laid the foundation. Not only that, in the new version, the Black Star Corps has become the strongest organization in the Flickering World other than the Dynasty. I still remember that the Black Star Corps was the guiding faction of the Shattered Star Ring in version 2.0. Now that it has developed into such a huge organization, it can provide a huge boost to the players of the Shattered Star Ring in the Flickering World and give them an innate advantage. However, I feel that there are 2 sides to everything. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. The players of the Shattered Star Ring who have an advantage will very likely become a thorn in the eyes of the players of the other star fields. The 2 hosts echoed each other and analyzed the situation of the version. Regarding the gameplay of the world server, there are many posts analyzing it. According to our conclusion, the competition in version 4.0 will most likely be dominated by guilds. Normal players will have more freedom and more room to maneuver, but the efficiency of obtaining resources will not be comparable to guilds. And our basis is the system recently announced by the Black Star Corps. Away suddenly paused, hesitated, and said, "Speaking of which, how many times have we predicted the version with the Black Star Corps as the wind vane?" As soon as this was said, the players who were watching the show seriously instantly went berserk, and comments flooded the screen. It's true. Everything originated from the Black Star Corps. Without the army, the Galaxy Times wouldn't even know how to make a show. Away, it's very easy to make a prediction. Just summarize the Black Star Corps' movement. Trash show, all thanks to the army, laughing emoji. Official bootlickers, can't be washed away. Black Star. That's right, I'm the most handsome guy in the Shattered Star Ring. To the person above, is there something wrong with the window to the soul? Ocean blue rising battle robes, pork bun on the left, Times on the right, Black Star shining, waves of the galaxy, here? You're the literary tycoon? Write a book if you know how to talk. The idiotic netizens started to show off again, and Han Shao was very happy. This wave of bootlickers was very comfortable. It was not in vain that I had been providing benefits and guiding the version. Cui Hua coughed and said, "Back to business, the Black Star Corps' movements are an important reference. The new system that they announced a while ago, the core mechanism is to turn guilds into official organizations in the universe, giving the players a chance to be independent. Independence has always been relatively unpopular in the previous versions, mainly because the conditions were not right. However, in version 4.0, the level cap has increased, and the influence of independence has increased. This gameplay may become more important. The Black Star Corps has guided this gameplay. According to their past deeds, this may become the mainstream gameplay in version 4.0. 0. Encouraging more people to form guild. However, all players, please pay attention. Normal independence requires leaving the original faction. So far, only the Black Star Corps has a semi-independent system. In other words, only army players can be independent while retaining the affiliation of the Black Star Corps. This is another unique advantage. Currently, it is not clear if this is one of the characteristics of the Black Star Corps. If the factions of the players in the other star fields do not have this system, I feel that many foreign players will switch to the Black Star Corps. Therefore, the question now is, if they become players of the same faction, will there still be a national war? The analysis is quite accurate, Han Xiao thought to himself. This was a good thing for him. It would help promote the superiority of his system and make the players more aware of the convenience of the army, increasing the attractiveness of the faction. The program then analyzed the possibility of the players in the world server in detail, as well as the movements of the players in the various star field. Han Xiao watched the whole process, mainly focusing on the movements of the players in the other star field. Unlike the Shattered Star Ring, the players in the other star fields did not have a unified faction. They were all scattered, and they were currently traveling across star fields with their factions. There were also quite a number of lone wolf players who had left the faction. Most of them were from America and Europe. After all, different places nurtured different people. Breathing in the sweet air, the genes of freedom were imperceptibly engraved in their bones. The factions that the players belonged to were worth paying attention to, and most of them were small organizations. Small organizations were nothing to worry about. There were too many powerful organizations in the flickering world, and the channels to join them would be opened up on a large scale in version 4.0. The players would be like being surrounded by countless disheveled vixens. How could they resist this temptation? They would immediately abandon the old and abandon the new. Furthermore, many people did not like to break up peacefully. They would directly cheat and become scumbags who betrayed their old faction in exchange for contribution points. Han Xiao remembered many cases. There were even players who purposely used the name of a small organization to provoke a big crocodile, leading to a wave of betrayal and attracting a strong enemy for the small organization. This caused the destruction of the old faction, and they would join the new enemy faction for a promotion and a raise. This was the epitome of shamelessness. To many players, integrity was nothing. Small organizations were not attractive and weak, so the players would not miss them. However, for a large faction like his, which had benefits and strength, normal players would cherish it and would not do such a thing. Other than small organizations, there were also foreign players who worked for powerful organizations, such as the Limitless Financial Group, the Galactic Black Market, the Extinguished Army, and some star cluster or even supercluster civilizations. Depending on the region, there were more or less immortals from different countries. Especially that bastard Sorokin. He recruited many players and even tested the army players in the past. He's probably trying to poach my people in the flickering world. Han Xiao secretly curled his lips. The Limitless Financial Group mainly recruited people in the Sea of Star Spirits, mainly Japanese and Korean players. The Extinguished Army was an important faction for the Americans. These two organizations had the most players other than the Black Star Corps. At the mention of the Extinguished Army, Han Xiao could not help but think of Baoni. Baoni was the leader of the Flame Demon race, and the Extinguished Army was mainly made up of the Frost Demon race. The two could be considered enemies. Baoni controlled the land of the Fire Corps, while the Extinguished Army controlled the land of the Frost Corps. Even the treasures of their respective races were very similar. Just as he was thinking, Han Xiao suddenly had a thought. He opened his attribute interface and saw that his experience bar was increasing rapidly. Our promotion is working. Dynasty, Temple of God, Long Sky, and the other first-tier professional clubs had all registered as official organizations in the Black Star Corps. The name of the organization was not changed and directly followed the name of the guild. After receiving Han Zhao's instructions, Philip turned on the lights and quickly approved the procedures for the guilds to become official members one after another. The organizational structure of the army players changed drastically, and they officially became recognized affiliated guild. Their records were set up in the army. After completing the registration, these large guilds immediately allowed a portion of their members to participate in the main storyline exploration mission and obtain many benefits promised by Han Xiao. To these large guilds, they could also use these benefits to attract many players who did not have guilds to join them. It was mutually beneficial. After 20 years of continuous hard work by the logistics department, the equipment of the army was all new models, and the equipment of the players were all outdated models from 20 years ago and needed to be updated. Coupled with the stimulation of the 70% discount, the desire to spend was unprecedentedly high, and there was a shopping frenzy in the military supply department. A large amount of anas entered his account, but to Han Technician, the money that the players brought was only a small profit. What was more important was the experience. He had added the experience fee to more faction products and introduced a new system. The players could choose two payment methods, either with money or experience. If they did not have money in their pockets, they could directly use experience to buy. In the eyes of the other army members, this was a little strange. It was like giving away equipment for free. However, now that Han Xiao was fully fledged, he did not need to be as careful as before when it came to dealing with the players. As long as he said that the immortals had special privileges, it could be explained away. The result was that the efficiency of harvesting experience increased exponentially. Experience was a special currency that belonged to the players. Currently, only the Black Star Corps had the service of donating experience for money. The other factions could not learn it even if they wanted to. Millions of army players arrived at the Black Star Palace in a few days, but the foreign players from the other star fields were still rushing. According to the itinerary of the players, the second to arrive in the world server should be the Southeast Asian players from Black Hole Edge, mainly Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Singapore. However, that would take many days, and the Chinese players had plenty of time to expand their advantage. Under the mobilization of the Black Star Corps, the players were roughly divided into two groups. One group followed the fleet led by Hela and set off for the fourth exploration phase, preparing to participate in the competition between the foreign organizations. The remaining players were mostly guild members. Using the benefits that Han Xiao promised, they chose to build their guild strongholds in the army's territory and used their team merit points to purchase resource points and various business operations rights, beginning to build a stronger foundation for their respective guild. Under the control of Han Xiao, all the army players were mobilized, developing step by step according to the path that he had pointed out, using the mainstream playstyle that had been proven in his previous life to expand their lead in the world server step by step. At the same time, the fleet led by Hela followed the other foreign organizations and arrived at the fourth exploration phase. The current situation could be summed up in one word: Demon Dance. Reborn, I want to be the richest man in the world. Introduction. The richest man has three good things: more money, more life, and less worries. Rebirth 2008. Xin Yen decided, I'll be the richest man. Chapter 10-19. The fourth exploration phase's target was 4 star clusters, which were geographically located in the center of the flickering world. The opening of the new star fields to the outside world was the dynasty's way of reducing their construction costs. The first 3 phases' territories were divided properly, and they were considered high-security zones. These 4 star clusters were free competition zones for all organizations. The dynasty did not restrict external organizations from fighting for territory, so they were considered low-security zones. The external organizations would choose one or a few star clusters to explore and fight for territory while opening up the map. In the early stages of the exploration, the various organizations mainly focused on occupying land. Their goal was basically the same, which was to occupy a bridgehead before slowly exploring the unknown areas. At this moment, countless foreign forces had just arrived in the fourth phase, and the exploration area was still limited to the edge of the 4-star clusters. However, the situation was already showing signs of complexity. If the territories of the various forces were to be carefully divided on the star map, it would definitely be the most complicated map in the entire universe. Most of the organizations had already foreseen the intensity of the competition and had formed groups of varying degrees. Generally speaking, the main factions active in the free competition zone could be divided into a few categories. The first was the local tyrants, which referred to the dynasty and their allies. They had occupied a territory at the edge of the 4-star fields and had a rather high status. After all, most of the external organizations did not want to fight with the local tyrants head-on, and the organizations under the dynasty did not put in much effort to explore and did not participate in the fierce competition. The second was the alliance of different civilizations. The Supercluster Alliance was the leader among them, and the rest were the Star Cluster Civilization alliances divided by star field. They explored and expanded without restraint and occupied bridgeheads. The territories of the Allies were adjacent to each other, and they appeared on the map of the organizations. This type of organization was the mainstream in the free competition zone. The third was the financial group forces, which were mainly mercenaries under them. They mainly sought wealth, and the territories they occupied were more scattered. The fourth was the external beyond Grade A organizations, which were also very competitive but were few in number. The fifth was the civilian organizations, which had the most complicated composition and the most scattered territories. In Han Zhao's previous life, they often changed hands and were the main areas where conflicts broke out. As for Radiance and Ethereal, they kept a low profile and did not have any intention of expanding. They only allowed their allies to freely participate in the competition. The three universal civilizations had a tacit understanding and were clearly giving up the stage for the other organizations to compete with. However, for now, although there were occasional conflicts in the free competition zones of the 4-star clusters, there had yet to be a large-scale conflict. The exploration had just begun, and there were still many unknown territories. Everyone was at the edge of the star cluster, and the power structure was far from being saturated. Currently, these organizations were mainly wary of the dynasty's attitude, but fighting was only a matter of time. With the Black Star Corps firing the first shot in the flickering world, this process would be greatly accelerated. In one of the fourth phase's free competition zones, in the Emerald Star Cluster, the enormous Black Star Corps exploration fleet sailed out of the dynasty's military stargate and arrived at the star cluster border. In the command room, Hela stood in front of the console expressionlessly, carefully looking at the holographic virtual star map in front of her. She had changed into a battle suit made from nanomaterials that Han Xiao had specially made for her. It was a double-breasted black uniform, the style of which was the luxurious version of the Army's officer uniform. It hugged her skin tightly, outlining her charming figure. There was the Army's logo on the collar. At the same time, she had a large high-collared cape on her back. The surface of the cape was black and gold with gorgeous patterns. The inner side of the cape was red. This outfit matched her unique temperament and made Hela look even more imposing. The model of the battle suit was Crimson Snake, first generation, a beyond Grade A equipment that contained a large amount of cutting-edge technology. In daily mode, it looked like ordinary clothes, but in combat mode, it would display the power of a beyond grade a mechanical suit. This battle suit was not made at the last minute. Before Hela returned, Han Xiao had already made this equipment. When Hela received this gift, although she did not say anything on the surface, She had been wearing it the entire time. Clearly, she liked it very much. "Deputy Army Commander, where are we going now?" the female adjutant beside her asked. Hela stretched out her finger and tapped on the holographic star map, zooming in on an area. This was a planet at the edge of the emerald star cluster called Planet Phyri. Its location was a little off and had not been occupied by anyone yet. "Let's go there and build a bridgehead," Hela said. She was now the commander of the exploration fleet. Han Shao had given her extremely high decision-making power and only limited the Army's exploration target to the Emerald Star Cluster. As for the specific operation, Hela would be in charge of it. The reason he chose the Emerald Star Cluster was that it was also the home of the Modo civilization's exploration. At the same time, it was also a rather prosperous area in his previous life. He remembered that there were still some hidden elements here. The remains of an old civilization were unearthed in this star cluster. The civilization level was very high, and it kept a lot of technological information. It had caused countless organizations to fight over it in his previous life, but the specific location was unknown. Most importantly, the Emerald Star Cluster was one of the coordinates where the primal chaos mysterious energy would be born. In God's legacy, there were quite a few coordinates that predicted the birth of the primal chaos mysterious energy. Han Shao could not determine which one was real. Because God did not die in his previous life, the information was not leaked. Therefore, God secretly took care of the primal chaos mysterious energy without attracting much attention from the outside world. The players also did not know about this. However, Han Shao had been secretly monitoring Evan's whereabouts. In his previous life, this host of the primal chaos mysterious energy had found a job after he was released from prison. He became a normal ground crew member of an exploration fleet of a financial group, responsible for cleaning and repairing spaceship. The fleet he was in had come to the Emerald Star Cluster. Therefore, Han Shao was quite sure that the Emerald Star Cluster was the location where the primal chaos mysterious energy would be born. After all, after the primal chaos mysterious energy was ripped off by God, it definitely found a host nearby. Therefore, the area where Evans was the most likely. Of course, Hela did not know about this yet. She casually ordered the fleet to head to Planet Phyri. However, a portion of the player guilds did not follow. Instead, they left the main group and acted separately. These guilds that had completed their registration had the right to act freely. In order to build their own strongholds, they did not want to follow the main group. This was something that Han Shao tacitly allowed. Furthermore, he had prepared many missions in the army interface specifically for the players. The rewards were generous, and this was to encourage the guilds to act independently and expand their lead. Somewhere in the Emerald Star Cluster, Beast Ancestor Garutan's fleet was stationed on a planet, building this bridgehead in full swing. Although he was the protector behind the scenes of the galactic black market, Garutan also had his own organization. If there was anything special about it, it would be that most of the members were his descendants. Garutan stood on a towering peak, looking down at the ground that was gradually being covered by metal. Above his head was the dark and deep starry sky, and the aurora brought about by the ionization of the atmosphere flowed in the sky. He was naked, and his majestic and mighty body was exposed between the heavens and the earth. The lion mane all over his body fluttered in the corrosive wind. Radiance surrounded his body, and every one of them was a highly condensed pugilist flame. A peak beyond grade A pugilist's training method had already transcended from purely tempering the body to a higher realm. He had to use every inch of his body to feel the movement of the universe. It was extremely mysterious. Like Heber's training method of bathing in a star, Garutan had stopped doing it a long time ago. At this moment, meteors flew from the sky and landed behind Garutan. They were all Calamity grade officers, and there were more than 40 of them. "Father!" Everyone lowered their heads and spoke in unison with a respectful tone. These officers were all the descendants of Beast Ancestor. Furthermore, they all had different appearances, as though they belonged to different species. Garutan was worthy of the Ancestor in his nickname. He also had a civilian nickname, Space Cedar. After he evolved into a beyond grade A species, he had obtained a powerful reproductive ability, and his genes had extraordinary adaptability. In front of him, there was almost no problem of reproductive isolation, and he could give birth to offspring with most species. His method of expanding his race was very simple and crude. It was to capture females of different races and use them to mate, giving birth to all kinds of hybrid species. If there were outstanding mutants among his descendants, he would also turn them into his reproductive machine, creating stronger descendants. This method impacted the ethics of some races, so Garutan had always been rejected by many civilizations, thinking that he was a barbarian like a beast. However, there were also many races that did not care about this. After all, every race had different ethics. Garutan turned around, not caring that he was naked in front of his descendants. He said in a muffled voice, "What's the matter?" A descendant stepped out from the crowd. He looked like a spider, but his face was humanoid. His 6 appendages were holding a communicator together as a sign of respect. "Father, Sorokin is looking for you." Garutan nodded and picked up the communicator. Sorokin's virtual figure appeared in front of him. "Why are you looking for me?" Sorokin smiled faintly. "Do you still remember my plan for the Black Star Corps? Now is the time. When the Limitless Financial Group gains a firm foothold, we will begin to target the Black Star Corps' territory. Before that, we can restrict the exploration of the army. Do you need my help? That's right. The Black Star Corps exploration team is currently heading to planet Phyrai, not far from you. I hope you can occupy planet Phyrai first. The leader of the other party is Hela. Test her. It's best if you can force the Black Star Fleet to retreat and delay their exploration progress. Why don't you do it yourself? My main body is not in the Emerald Star Cluster. Plus, I can't beat Hela. Sorokin smiled. Humph, we made a deal with you because we don't want to deal with the Black Star Corps personally. What's the meaning of this? Garutan snorted coldly. As a peak beyond grade A, he was not afraid of provoking Black Star. He just did not want to work for free. Sorokin slowly said, "My abilities are limited. I only have some ability in business. If you don't help me, I won't be able to restrict the exploration of the Black Star Corps, and the effect will be reduced. When the time comes, don't blame me for not giving Black Star enough pressure. Plus, I can reveal some information to you. Radiance and Ethereal have plans to get rid of Hela. Are they not afraid of angering the dynasty and causing another tragedy of the Pinnacles? You don't know this. Hela belongs to the Black Star Corps, but she did not agree to join the dynasty. Getting rid of her will only anger Black Star. Hela becoming a beyond grade A was an accident, but it also gave us a new direction to attack the Black Star Corps." Garutan narrowed his eyes. "Did you forget what Black Star said at the meeting of the gods? There are too few beyond grade As. Even one of them dying is not beneficial to us." "Haha, is that really the case?" Sorokin smiled faintly. "The Mecha Empire is very ambitious. He hopes to gather all the beyond grade A organizations and obtain more things. But thinking about it, isn't this being used by him? My thoughts are the exact opposite of his. If there are fewer beyond grade As, the remaining people will be safer and more heavily relied on by the advanced civilizations." Garutan frowned. "Are you planning to betray the beyond grade As on the same front? There has never been such a thing as betrayal. What does the others have to do with us? Isn't the current situation of the beyond grade As good enough?" Sorokin did not mind. "Scheming for something that does not belong to us. This kind of ambition will only lead us to our doom. Don't say such things to me again. I'll pretend I didn't hear it." Garutin waved his hands in annoyance. Seeing that we're old friends, I'll help you this time. I'll make a trip to planet Phyri. Double my dividends for the next period. Otherwise, there's no need to talk about it. Okay. Sorokin smiled. After hanging up, Garutin looked back at his many descendants and said with a deep voice, "Prepare the spaceship and follow me." This time, one of his descendants could not help but say, "Father, isn't it not worth it for us to provoke the Black Star core in the flickering world? Do you think Sorokin is the first person to ask me to do this?" Garutin snorted. In the current flickering world, there are many organizations that want to deal with the Black Star core. Black Star is too big of a tree that attracts too much wind. Halfway through their journey, the Black Star Core exploration fleet suddenly received a message. "Your Excellency Deputy Army Commander, there's a situation." The female adjutant rushed into the room. Hela, who was meditating, opened her eyes and said with a frown, "What's the matter? Planet Phyri has been occupied by someone else. The other party is Beast Ancestor Garutin's fleet. Should we change to another planet?" Garutin. A cold glint flashed through Hela's eyes. "We did not hide our whereabouts. The outside world knows our target, but he purposely occupied planet Phyri. This is a provocation to the army. If we take a detour, it will weaken the prestige that the army commander has worked so hard to build. But Garutin is a peak beyond grade A, UU." The adjutant did not dare to continue. "Your army commander is also a peak beyond grade A, so there's no reason to give in." Hela stood up and said with a deep voice, "Do not change the route. Full speed ahead." "So what if he's a peak beyond grade A? It's not like I haven't been beaten before." She wasn't like Garose, who had exhausted his potential. She was like a newborn calf that wasn't afraid of tigers. She had never been afraid of challenging the strong. Only by fighting with the strong could one's potential be stimulated. This was Hela's creed. At the same time, Han Shao, who was happily counting his EXP in Black Star Palace every day, also received the message from Philip and was slightly stunned. "Garutin? When did I provoke him?" Han Shao scratched his head and felt a little helpless. Although he did not know the reason, he was no longer a small character. There was no reason for him to give in and let others take advantage of him. "You're the one who ran over to shorten your lifespan." Recommended book, I Can Extract Proficiency, Wuxia Online Gaming Novel, by Yun Donglu. Introduction. Want to team up to kill the boss? We'll split the equipment equally, and the corpse is mine. Yi Weiming, who was wearing a flying suit, had the heavenly sword in his right hand and the coffin lid in his left. He looked at the boss with an extremely kind gaze. Chapter 1020. Planet Phyri. Streams of light flashed across the universe and stopped not far away from the planet, revealing the Black Star Corps' exploration fleet. "Deputy Army Commander, we're here." On the bridge, Hela looked at planet Phyri through the porthole and saw Garutin's fleet hovering outside the planet. "Open the wide area communication and contact them." Hela decided to use peaceful means before resorting to force. The communicator sent out a message, and after a while, a communication request popped up on the screen. After connecting, a beast-like humanoid lifeform appeared on the screen. It was a Calamity-grade officer. "I'm Goragon, the son of Beast Ancestor. Greetings, Your Excellency Hela." "What's the meaning of this?" Hela frowned. "Father wishes to invite you to planet Phyri for a discussion. He's waiting for you on the surface." "Discuss what?" "I don't know what Father is thinking, but the question is, do you dare to come?" Goragon's tone was impolite and aggressive. "Sure, make way and let my fleet land. We'll talk after that." "Sorry, Father said that only you are allowed to go. The fleet cannot follow." "Then tell him to scram." Hela turned around and said decisively, "All ships, listen to my order. Advance and destroy any battleship that dares block our way." At this time, the screen changed, and Garutin's figure appeared. Facing someone of the same level, running naked was too impolite. He wore a simple sleeveless battle suit and stood with his arms crossed, expressionless. Not bad, looks like the Black Star Corps has a tough deputy army commander. Seeing this, Hela raised her fist and said, Garutin, I'm very curious. The Black Star Corps has no conflict with you. Why are you provoking us? Garutin said in a muffled voice, You want to know the reason? I'll tell you when we meet. Let's see if you have the guts. I'll wait for you on the planet's surface. Both you and I will have our fleets stay away from planet Phyri. With that said, Garutin's fleet was the first to leave planet Phyri, facing off against Black Star's fleet from afar. Coincidentally, the planet was right in the middle between the two fleets, leaving Garutin alone on planet Phyri. Hela pondered for a moment, then turned to the adjutant and said, Fully explore planet Phyri and the surrounding environment, see if there are any hidden life signals or energy sources, and prevent the enemy from setting traps. The adjutant nodded and gave the order. After a while, he received a report. The surroundings are very clean. There is indeed only one life signal from Garutin. How is it, should we open fire? Before his superior said anything, the adjutant wanted to take the opportunity to attack Garutin. Since he's sincere, I'll listen to what he has to say. You guys stay here and wait for orders. Keep the weapon system activated and be vigilant of the surroundings. Once the enemy fleet makes any abnormal movements, open fire immediately. Even if the fleet took the opportunity to attack Garutin, it would not be much of a threat to him. Since he dared to do so, he naturally had nothing to fear. Hela was unsure of Garutin's intentions, so she simply agreed to meet him. Perhaps Garutin was planning to create a one-on-one environment to attack her, but she did not panic. This was exactly what she wanted. Even if she could not beat a pinnacle beyond grade A, she could still hold on for a while. Hela took a small spaceship and quickly entered planet Phyri's atmosphere, stopping high in the sky. The hatch opened and Hela stepped out, looking down at the surface. In the middle of a barren plain filled with strange rocks, Garutin sat on a huge rock with his elbows on his knees and his palms crossed in front of him. He looked up at Hela and slowly spoke. As an Esper, you dare to come into close contact with a pinnacle beyond grade A pugilist. You're very brave. The sound waves coming from his mouth seemed to cause the air in the world to vibrate, spreading far away like thunder. Hela did not land, hovering in the air, and said, If you have something to say, just say it. Why are you looking for me? Garutin stared at Hela and said calmly, I don't know what others think, but in my eyes, you're the one with the most potential among this batch of new beyond grade As. So? Hela raised her brows. A talent like you will climb to a higher level sooner or later. There's no need for you to be someone's subordinate. Coming out alone is more suitable for you, Garutin said calmly. Hela's eyes flashed, and she said coldly, Which organization are you representing to sow discord between Black Star and me? The 3 universal civilizations? I'm only representing myself and the Galactic Black Market Management Committee. You can take my words as a sincere suggestion. Don't you think you're meddling too much? Hela snorted. I can see that you're a very tough person, and you don't like to listen to other people's orders. Sooner or later, you'll definitely be independent. Garutin's eyes were filled with interest. When that day comes, I'm willing to give you an invitation to become one of the protectors of the galactic black market. Not only was he trying to sow discord, but he was also trying to poach her. Hela's face was indifferent. I have my communicator on, and Black Star can hear you the entire time. So what if he hears? Garutin did not care. You have the right to choose, and you're not his slave. I'm not interested in your invitation. Hela was indifferent. Are you done? Withdraw your troops, and we'll treat it as if the provocation never happened. I don't think this is a provocation. Planet Phyri doesn't belong to the Black Star Corps in the first place. This is a free competition zone, not your territory. No one said that other people can't occupy the planet you set your eyes on. Garuten shook his head. You had the chance to occupy this planet a long time ago, but you only came over to take it for yourself after we made our choice. If this isn't a provocation, what is? Hela said. Don't be too overbearing, kid. Garuten grinned. First come, first serve. You're the ones who should get lost. Go find another planet. This is my stronghold now. As soon as he said that, the atmosphere became tense, and the two of them were at each other's throats. He was entrusted by someone, and no matter what reaction Hela had, he would not give in. His goal was to force Hela to fight with him and test her. From his point of view, this mission was very simple. As long as he fought with Hela and let the Black Star Corps suffer some losses, he would see if he could retreat or not. That would be the end of it. Although this level of conflict and provocation would cause Black Star to be dissatisfied, it was not to the point of fighting to the death. He was quite sure that he did not want to make an enemy of Black Star, and the Black Star did not want to make an enemy of him either. Both sides were not to be trifled with. Hela's expression turned completely cold. Garuten was right, the Black Star Corps was unreasonable. However, if she gave in this situation, others would not praise her for being reasonable, but would only think that she was weak. If all problems could be solved through reason, there would be no disputes in this world. If you don't back down, I won't back down. Since you're deliberately looking for trouble, the only way to solve it is to use force. Looking at Garuten's malicious expression, Hela was silent for a few seconds before she suddenly made her move. Rumble! Monstrous death energy swept out, turning into a rainstorm of attacks that shot down from all directions. It looks quite scary. Garuten twisted his neck and stomped on the ground. Bang! The ground cracked, and a huge ring-shaped valley was created by his stomp. The shockwave swept up the dust and scattered it. He turned into a meteor and crashed into the rainstorm of death energy. Dark brown pugilist flames wrapped around his body, revealing a wild and arrogant temperament. Bang! The meteor swept past in an instant. Before Hela could react, the fist wrapped in flames hit her abdomen. The shield of the battle suit cracked, and small cracks appeared on the outer armor. Her entire body shot out with a bang, breaking through the sound barrier. What powerful strength, what fast speed! Hela's expression changed slightly. The anti-seismic system of the battlesuit could not withstand such a powerful shock. Hela only felt as if her internal organs had been flattened, and she was in extreme pain. It took her a lot of effort to stabilize her body in midair, but she was secretly shocked. They were both peak beyond grade as, but the feeling of fighting with Garuten was completely different from Han Xiao. Han Xiao suppressed her in all aspects. He was strong in every aspect, and he had great control. It was as if he could flatten her at will. On the other hand, Garuten's fighting style was extremely berserk. He was like a rampaging beast, unstoppable and unstoppable. Hela's impression of a beyond-grade A pugilist mainly came from Heber, but this was completely different from a peak beyond-grade A pugilist. They were not on the same level. Speed, strength, energy, and other attributes all had a qualitative change. To be specific, Garuten alone could beat 3 or 4 Hebers to death. Only the SS grade could be considered a peak beyond grade A, and the combat strength of this level was no joke. After one successful attack, Garuten did not pursue. Instead, he hovered in place and looked down to observe the death energy clinging to his body. His protective energy was extremely thick, and most of the attacks were blocked by it. Only a small part of the damage was inflicted on his body, and only a few layers of the death's erosion were stacked on his body. Corrosive energy seems to be related to vitality. Looks like the rumors are true. You used this method to heavily injure Tolian. The more you accumulate, the stronger your explosive power. Garuten glanced at Hela, and his energy burst out, shattering the death energy on his body and dispelling the death's erosion status. Pugilists who relied on their bodies to survive usually had many skills that could dispel negative statuses. This is a little tricky. Hela gritted her teeth, but her eyes lit up. She realized that Garutin's combat strength was a little beyond her expectations, but this did not make her retreat. Instead, it made her battle intent soar. The next moment, Hela took the initiative to attack again, and the death energy surged like a tide. While attacking, it wrapped around her and moved quickly. A red tide like a tsunami rushed toward him. Garutin lowered his shoulders and took a step forward, slamming into the air in front of him. In an instant, an invisible spherical shockwave exploded in midair, quickly enveloping the incoming death energy. Rumble! The sound of vibrations echoed between heaven and earth. Garutin's collision was a skill. The particles in the entire space in front of him seemed to vibrate at a high frequency, and the approaching death energy collapsed one after another, quickly dispersing, unable to get close to his body. Your strength doesn't seem to match your attitude. Garutin's expression was indifferent. His figure suddenly disappeared, and he moved at full speed. Swoosh! The difference in speed was too great. Before Hela could react, Garutin had already arrived beside her, and a powerful whip kick landed on her back. Boom! She arched her body and shot into the sky like a cannonball, flying out of outer space. Cough cough! I can't fight him in close combat. Hela felt that dozens of bones in her body had been broken by that kick, and she immediately made a judgment. When facing Tolian, she could still rely on her vampiric ability to fight head-on because the difference in strength was not too great. However, compared to a pinnacle beyond grade A pugilist, her strength, speed, and close combat skills were far too lacking. The difference in strength was too great. Although they were both beyond grade As, she could not even see the other party's figure clearly. In the field of close combat, pinnacle beyond grade A pugilists were almost invincible. Fighting head-on would be courting death. In a one-on-one battle, I have no way of fighting back. I have to make the battlefield more complicated. While Hela was thinking of a strategy, the built-in communicator of the battlesuit rang. Han Zhao's voice came out. He was online the whole time. How is it? Do you feel the difference in strength? Do you need help? No need. Hela shook her head. How could she grow if she always had Black Star help her? But you're not his match. If you can't do it, let me do it. Han Zhao raised his brows. He knew that Hela would not be able to beat him. During the meeting of the gods, he had collected information on Garutin's attribute. There were a lot of question marks. Even he himself might not be able to beat Garutin in a head-on battle, let alone Hela. If a pinnacle beyond grade A was so easy to deal with, there would not be such a huge deterrent. However, he knew that even if she could not beat him, the one at a disadvantage would not be Hela, so he did not interfere with Hela's training. Humph, wait until I'm about to be beaten to death before you help. Hela stabilized her body, turned around, and tried to open up a distance while attacking with death energy to restrain Garutin. It could not be considered a close combat battle. It was almost a one-sided beating. If not for Garutin deliberately slowing down his attacks to force out Hela's various abilities, she would have been beaten to a pulp. The difference in speed and strength was enough to break through anything. However, Garutin did not feel relaxed. After enduring the attacks of death energy, he could not help but feel a little wary. What a strange ability! If not for my overwhelming strength, her Esper ability might have been quite a threat to me. Another punch landed on Hela's shoulder, and Hela shot out. Garutin was about to chase after her when he suddenly realized that Hela had adjusted her direction. Her target was his fleet. She actually took the initiative to fly toward my fleet? Is she not afraid of being surrounded? Garutin was slightly stunned. This time, Hela suddenly changed her hand gesture, and a wave of psychic energy burst out. He paused, and the world in front of him changed drastically. It was as if he was suddenly pulled into a dark space. Looking down, he saw the faces of countless vengeful spirits. Abyss of the dead. Although pugilists trained their minds, their mental resistance would not be too high. Garutin was stunned when he was hit by this mind control skill. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Hela swept up the death energy and crashed through the shield erected by Garutin's fleet, rushing into the fleet. Gorgon, who had been talking to Hela earlier, stood in the command room of one of the spaceships, confused. What is she doing? Before he could take action, Hela raised her hands, and the death energy burst out, attacking all the spaceships around her. What? Gorgon was shocked and hurriedly ordered the fleet to dodge. However, before he could issue the order, the dark red energy rushed over and covered the porthole. It quickly approached and occupied his line of sight. Gorgon's eyes widened. Rumble! Rumble! In an instant, the spaceships were chewed up and swallowed by the death energy like biscuits, and the lives of countless Garutin's descendants were harvested. Hela's HP quickly recovered through the feedback of lifesteal. After the previous exchange, Hela was very clear that she was far from being a match for Garutin in a one-on-one fight. With her HP, she would not be able to last long. The only way to increase her endurance was to turn the battle into a group fight, allowing herself to absorb more HP. Her combat strength in a large-scale battle was far higher than in a one-on-one fight. Fighting in groups was her home field. Hela rampaged through the fleet, killing everything in her path. Her status quickly recovered, and countless screams were drowned out by the explosions. At this time, Garutin finally got rid of the mind control of Abyss of the Dead. As soon as he came back to his senses, he saw Hela had left him and was wantonly slaughtering his descendants. His expression changed drastically, and he was furious. In his opinion, Hela was slaughtering his descendants to vent her anger. Many of them were elites that he had carefully cultivated. You dare! Chapter 10:21. The death energy wreaked havoc on the fleet, corroding and penetrating the shields, tearing apart the outer armor. Hela's figure shuttled back and forth in the universe. Countless of Garutin's subordinates were killed by the combination of physical and mental damage. The death energy took away their life force and replenished Hela's health. At the same time, it absorbed the soul fragments of the dead to strengthen Hela's Esper ability. Being attacked, the fleet panicked for a moment and hurriedly counterattacked. The cannons on the ships fired, but some of them were dodged or blocked by the death energy shield. Only a small portion of them caused damage to Hela. However, in front of Hela's high blood-sucking efficiency, these injuries were healed in the blink of an eye. Garutin's eyes looked like they were about to spit fire, and he was extremely furious. His speed suddenly increased, and he almost instantly passed through the surging death energy around Hela, closing in on her body. This time, he did not hold back, and his punches and kicks filled with killing intent left countless afterimages as they landed on her body like a storm. Bang bang bang! Rings of flames exploded, and the punches continued to shatter Hela's organs and bones. The power of a peak beyond grade A pugilist almost turned her into a pile of meat paste. However, Hela, who had received a large amount of blood-sucking feedback, increased her endurance by a few levels. Her health dropped and rose again, and she barely managed to hold on. Hela kept dodging and defending, but she did not forget to counterattack time and time again. She even exchanged injuries for injuries. You're really looking for death. Garutin was furious. While beating Hela, he looked back at the Black Star Corps fleet not far away with eyes filled with killing intent. Hela actually dared to kill his subordinates to vent her anger. He could also return the favor to the Black Star Corps. However, at this time, Garutin's pupils constricted. He saw a mech legion fly out from the Black Star Corps fleet and block in front of the fleet. The leader was emitting shocking energy waves. It was Black Star's Lord's avatar. Han Zhao's mechanical army was on standby and did not plan to rescue Hela. Garuten knew that if he attacked the fleet, he would be in a 1 versus 2 situation. I'm only one person, and I won't be able to split myself. If I attack the Black Star core fleet, I'll face Black Star, and Hela will be free to slaughter my subordinates. As this thought flashed through his mind, Garuten could only give up the idea of attacking the fleet, and he was even more furious. He was a peak beyond grade A, beyond grade A, beyond grade A. Black Star, you really think I won't kill your officers? Fine. If you don't interfere, I'll beat your deputy army commander to death right in front of you. Ever since Hela slaughtered his subordinates, the level of conflict had escalated. Garuten no longer had the thought of testing the waters but wanted to kill. Black Star is not to be trifled with? So what? We're both peak beyond grade as. You really think I'm afraid of you? I have a temper too. Garuten increased the intensity of his attacks, turning his anger into lethality and blasting it all on the opponent in front of him. Attacking wildly meant that openings would be easily exposed. Hela was covered in blood, but she ignored the pain and kept her calm. She stared at the death energy on Garuten's body that was getting denser and denser, and her eyes flashed. All of a sudden Garuten's fist was wrapped in violent flames, and he punched out. He had used a skill, and the space around him seemed to be distorted. Swoosh! His fist passed through Hela's chest as though he had punched through her. The fist energy shot out and separated the red sea of death energy. However, Garuten's eyes narrowed, and he did not feel like he had hit anything. The next moment, Hela's body suddenly turned into a cluster of death energy and wrapped around Garuten's arm. In the sea of death energy far away, a cluster of human-shaped energy rose up and quickly transformed into Hela's original body. Dead Sea Stealth. Hela could turn her body into half energy and teleport in the area covered by death energy. The cooldown was not short, and this was one of her few movement skills. Garuten frowned. After beating Hela up for so long, he thought that Hela did not have any dodging abilities. Just as he was about to give chase, Garuten felt his fist sink. The energy slew that Hela left behind when she teleported wrapped around his hand and released a huge suction force, dragging his arm down as though it was trying to suck him into the sea of death energy. At the same time, the Death's Erosion on Garuten's body suddenly soared from 10 to 15 layers. Dead Transfer. Hela's method of stacking Death's Erosion was not just a normal attack. She had the ability to stack multiple layers of marks in an instant, and this was one of them. It was a semi-control skill, and as long as it was effective, she could give the target 5 layers of Death's Erosion. She had been hiding this skill all along, and she wanted to launch a surprise attack to stack all the marks on Garuten's body and detonate the 15 layers of Death's Harvest before he could dispel the debuff. Attacking Garuten's fleet was to suck blood and choose a battlefield that was beneficial to her to increase her endurance. Secondly, it was to attract aggro. From her point of view, she could only use herself as bait to provoke Garuten's anger. Only then would he have a chance to reveal his weakness. As long as he strengthened his attacks, he would have less energy to defend. Hela's eyes were calm. The moment the skill took effect, she did not give Garuten any time to react. She seamlessly connected Death's Harvest and detonated the 15 layers of marks. Boom! Garuten's body exploded with a dazzling red light. Hela took the opportunity to retreat and widen the distance between them. However, in the next moment, a dark brown pugilist body separation wave shot out from the red light, evaporating the death energy that blocked its path and directly hitting Hela, pushing her straight toward planet Phyri. The brown ray pierced through planet Phyri like a toothpick piercing through an orange. However, in the next second, holes appeared on both sides of the planet and began to expand rapidly, releasing the red light of the planet's core. Buzz. In an instant, everyone's eyes were filled with white, and they subconsciously closed their eyes. If not for the battleship portholes having the function of adjusting the spectrum and brightness, this level of light would have been enough to burn the eyes of many people present. Warning! Warning! Energy eruption detected. Level of explosion. Planet annihilation. The ear-piercing alarm sounded on every ship, and when everyone opened their eyes again, the huge planet had already disappeared without a trace. Only a tiny speck of dust was left. The entire planet collapsed and was annihilated. Countless materials were vaporized, and Hela was nowhere to be seen. At this time, the death energy explosion caused by Death's Harvest quickly dissipated, revealing Garutin's figure. There were many corrosive wounds on his body, and they were slowly healing. His level was too high, so the instant death judgment could not succeed. However, it had still vaporized 20% of his health. Ever since he stepped into the peak beyond Grade A realm, Garutin had rarely suffered such heavy injuries. In his expectations, dealing with a new beyond Grade A like Hela would be a piece of cake, but he did not expect to suffer such a loss. In his rage, Garutin brazenly used one of his trump cards, his self-created pugilist ultimate technique, Beast Ancestor Flow, Light of Piercing. This was not just a pure pugilist fluctuation but also contained the laws of the universe that he had comprehended with his body. It looked like a pugilist flame ray, but in reality, it swept up the energy of the universe along the way, bringing with it a terrifying radiation energy. Its power multiplied, and when it hit the planet's core, it would cause a chain collapse and complete the destruction of the planet. Its lethality toward life forms was also terrifying. Hela's health was not full to begin with, and with this attack, it was as if she had been vaporized and killed instantly. Garutin's murderous gaze turned to Black Star in the distance, and the aura around his body gradually rose. He did not think that Black Star would be indifferent to killing the other party's deputy army commander in front of Black Star. He was already prepared to deal with a strong enemy. However, out of his expectations, Han Zhao's mechanical army did not rush over to take revenge as he had imagined but instead turned around and went to the area of the planet wreckage. Just as he was confused, a gray light lit up in the wreckage of planet Phyrai. Wisps of gray energy gathered and formed a whirlwind. Hela's spiritual body was faintly discernible in it, attracting Garutin's attention. The next moment, Hela's body reassembled in the whirlwind. The death energy draped over her body like a robe, covering her body, only revealing her face, which was slightly pale. A mechanical soldier tossed out an army insignia. Hela casually caught it and activated it. Countless nanoparticles flowed out from it and turned into a new crimson snake, first-generation combat suit that automatically wore on her body. Immediately after, the Aurora potion inside the combat suit was injected into her body. Hela's depressed state that had returned from the brink of death quickly soared. Her face became rosy again, and her health and mana recovered to more than half. Not dead. Garutin's eyes narrowed, and his face instantly darkened. It would have been fine if he did not want to kill Hela, but he had already tried to kill her, and Hela was still alive. This gave Garutin a completely different feeling, and he was immediately unhappy. However, Black Star had already intervened, so it was useless to chase after her now. Garutin frowned and ordered the fleet to regroup while he waited for orders to recover. The way he saw it, since Hela was not dead, Black Star would definitely have to give him an explanation. On the other side, Hela flew back to the Lord's avatar. Han Xiao glanced at her and said with a smile that was not a smile, "How was it? Do you still want to get beaten up?" "I can't beat him, but I did deal some damage to him." Hela shook her head and felt that she had gained quite a lot. She had accumulated more experience fighting against beyond grade as, and at the same time, she had killed quite a few of the enemy's troop. Her Esper ability strength had increased slightly. This was especially so since a few Calamity grade officers had died in her hands, which gave her a considerable bonus. It was much better than when she had slaughtered wild beasts during her training. As she said that, Hela paused and hesitated for a moment. This time, "I've caused you some trouble, right?" In order to turn the situation around, she had attacked the enemy's fleet. This kind of combat method made it too easy to make enemies. She had probably formed a deeper grudge with Gerutin. Of course, Hela did not feel sorry for Gerutin at all. As long as she entered battle mode, the lives of her enemies were just walking blood bags in her eyes. She only felt sorry for Han Xiao. My personality seems to make it very easy to make enemies. Maybe staying in the Black Star Corps was a wrong decision and will cause him trouble. Hela could not help but have this thought flash through her mind. She was still the goddess of death, who viewed human lives as nothing in her previous life. Her indifference to life was a character that was carved into her bones, or it might be a characteristic brought about by her Esper ability. The only thing that was better than her previous life was that she would not kill ordinary people indiscriminately. Her cruelty was only targeted at her enemies. Han Xiao knew that Hela was not good at dealing with people. She was straightforward and reckless, so it was impossible to expect her to hold back. "We'll talk about that when we get back." Han Xiao shook his head and said with an unquestionable tone, "Get on the spaceship first. I'll take care of the rest." Hearing this, Hela opened her mouth but did not say anything. In the end, she nodded silently and boarded the spaceship. Han Xiao controlled his lord's avatar and slowly approached Gerutin's army. When they arrived at the center, the mechanical army threw out compressed orbs one after another, forming a small floating space base with an area of only 1,000 square meters. The entrance of the base was wide open, and Han Xiao waved at Gerutin and made an inviting gesture. Gerutin narrowed his eyes and flew into the base. The interior of the base was filled with air. There was a long table in the center with 2 seats at each end. Han Xiao sat at one end and nodded at Gerutin. "Please sit." Gerutin sat down and snorted. "Black Star, your deputy army commander is really bold. I've never seen a new beyond grade A who's so courting death. Does she think that she can do whatever she wants with you as her backer?" "Hee, what are you talking about? She's always been bold. It has nothing to do with me." Han Xiao shook his head. "I'm not going to talk nonsense with you." Gerutin waved his hand. "For your sake, I won't take her life, but she killed my descendants. This debt has to be settled. Tell me how to settle it." "I think it's very simple." Han Xiao controlled his lord's avatar to stroke his metal chin. "You take your troops and leave, and I won't pursue this matter. How about that?" "What did you say? Say it again if you dare." Gerutin's eyes widened, and his pugilist aura surged. "Don't be agitated, don't be agitated." Han Xiao raised his hand and said calmly, "I don't think so. Hela didn't agree to fight you one-on-one, so you can't blame anyone. Plus, I'm sure you've noticed that she didn't attack your fleet to vent her anger but to use her abilities to create an advantageous environment for herself. After all, she's no match for you, so she naturally has to make use of the battlefield conditions. Plus, in my opinion, it's clearly you and your fleet ganging up on her alone. Isn't that even worse? I didn't have much contact with you in the past." "Sure enough, seeing is better than hearing about you. You're as shameless as the rumors say." Gerutin sneered. "Is that so?" Han Xiao clicked his tongue. "Is it glorious for a peak beyond grade A to bully a new beyond grade A? I have no enmity with you in the past, but you took the initiative to provoke my people and bully my deputy army commander. Of course, she's no match for you in a one-on-one battle, but you didn't allow her to choose a battlefield that was advantageous to her. You're clearly bullying my people, and you still think you're in the right?" Gerutin was speechless for 2 seconds before he said with a deep voice, "No matter what, many of my subordinates are my descendants. Many calamity-grade officers that I carefully nurtured died in her hand. She attacked my fleet first. She started this, so there's no way I'll let it go like this." Han Shao chuckled. Weren't you the one who started the fight? How did it become us starting the fight? Also, you started the fight and now you're complaining that my people were too heavy-handed. I think you're even more shameless than me. Bang! Garutan slammed his hand on the table and stood up abruptly, full of anger. Black Star, watch your attitude. Fine, fine, fine. Assuming you're in the right, what do you want me to do? Han Shao spread his hands. Garutan said coldly, compensation, of course. I won't force your subordinates to pay with their lives. I want you to compensate me for my losses. Also, get Hela to apologize to me. Oh, that's a very reasonable request. Han Shao smiled. But I refuse. Black Star. Garutan was enraged. He smashed the table with his palm and roared, Do you really want to become my enemy? This time, Han Zhao's tone turned cold. Do you think you're the only one who's angry? You bullied my old friend and even wanted to poach my people. I haven't settled this score with you yet. Also, what gave you the illusion that I can't afford to offend you? The Lord's avatar slowly rose into the air and floated in front of Garutan. Their gazes met, and it was as if sparks could be seen. Their auras rose steadily, and they were at each other's throats. Lightning mixed with wind echoed in the narrow space. Looking straight into Garutan's eyes, Han Shao slowly said, It's not up to you to control my people. As he spoke, he raised his hand and pointed at Garutan's chest with his finger. He didn't back down, and his tone was firm. All of you want to test me every day. Do you really think I don't have a temper? I'm killing your people. If you want to play, I'll play with you to the end. Can you afford to play? Chapter 10:22. As soon as he said that, the atmosphere suddenly became tense, and a fight could break out at any moment. The anger in Garutan's eyes almost solidified. His energy fluctuations rose steadily, and the violent pugilist flames burned fiercely, emitting a huge pressure. The metal walls around him buzzed and vibrated, and cracks gradually appeared. You want to fight? Han Zhao's eyes flashed, and blue-gold electric snakes wrapped around his body, crackling loudly. After a dozen seconds of stalemate, Garutan's flames suddenly disappeared, and the pressure in the room disappeared. The anger on his face quickly disappeared, and he said calmly, Black Star, you really gave me a surprise. You're tough. Han Shao crossed his arms and said calmly, We'll talk about that later. What's your opinion now? Garutan's face was expressionless. He pointed at the head of the Lord's avatar and slowly said, I'll remember what happened today. It's not over between us. Then, he turned around and strode away, leaving the small floating base and flying back to his own fleet. I thought that you would really get carried away and come over here to beat me up. Han Shao shook his head, walked to the door, and watched as Garutan led the fleet away, disappearing from his sight. A small battle ended with Garutan's retreat. Han Shao recalled his mechanical army and controlled the Lord's avatar to return to the main ship. Hela had been waiting there for a long time. As soon as he returned to the command room, Hela greeted him. What conditions did you agree to? Or did you force him to leave? Han Shao shook his head. Neither. He left on his own accord. Garutan suffered a loss. Can he really take it? Hela was confused. At least on the surface, he didn't suffer a loss. He blew up planet Phyri, which we chose, and slowed down our exploration speed, forcing us to change planets as our stronghold. You killed some of his subordinates, so he didn't earn much. It's a tie. You won't just let this go, right? Hela frowned. Of course not. We already have a grudge with him. Garutan won't let this go. Hela slowly exhaled and said softly, I was the one who aggravated the conflict and made a new enemy for the army. Don't blame yourself, I don't blame you. What you did was exactly what I needed. Han Shao interrupted her and waved his hand. Garutan's provocation is a test. Right now, the army is a big tree that attracts the wind, and there are too many people who want to test us. Garuten might have even more powers behind him. With so many enemies around us, if we don't act tough and ruthless, if we don't make the other powers feel apprehensive, then any random cat or dog will dare to test us in the future. Furthermore, your strength is too far apart. He's obviously bullying you by challenging you to a duel. We can't let him beat you up for nothing. If you're beaten up by him, the reputation of the army will still fall. Hela stared at Han Xiao, a strange light flashing in her eyes, and tilted her head. You don't care if I make enemies for you? Han Xiao did not mind. What I like the most is your ruthlessness. So what if Garuten is only testing us? Do I have to obediently play along with him and wait for him to leave after he's done? Remember, he chose to be my enemy, not you. If you aren't ruthless, you won't be able to stand firm. I didn't ask you to lead the team through the competition zone to be a coward. If anyone dares to stand in your way, don't be courteous. Don't make yourself suffer. The current status of the Black Star Corps was different. They had the largest territory in the flickering world, and they were in charge of suppressing the dynasty. Status brought benefits but also responsibility, so they had to be tougher. Truth? Of course. Han Xiao smiled and patted Hela's shoulder. You're an important fighter for me, and what I need is deterrence. If I don't protect you, am I supposed to speak for the enemy? Wouldn't that make me a fool? Originally, Han Xiao only wanted to make use of Hela's ability to make the other party suffer a little. Provoking Garuten was not part of the plan, but since things had already come to this, he had nothing to fear. Since the other party had taken the initiative to provoke him, he deserved to be beaten up. Hearing Han Xiao say this, Hela's tense face relaxed a little. After a pause, she asked, "What did you say to him just now?" "I was just trying to reason with him." Han Xiao briefly recounted his conversation with Garuten. After hearing that, Hela's lips could not help but curl into a smile. "You're so tough, and he actually did not fight with you?" "I'm a peak beyond grade A after all." Han Xiao smiled. "Also, you're part of the reason why he didn't make a move." "Me?" "We have 2 beyond grade as on our side, so the situation isn't in his favor. Furthermore, Garuten isn't in his peak condition, so he won't have much of an advantage if he makes a move," Han Xiao said. If it were an ordinary beyond grade A, Garuten might not have cared, but Hela had used Death God's Harvest to heavily injure him not long ago. The deterrence was very strong, so Garuten's health was not full, and his maximum health was reduced by about 10%. In such a situation, one of them was Black Star, so the risk was a little high. Han Xiao guessed that this was the reason why Garuten retreated. Although pugilists were stubborn, they knew how to judge the situation. In the face of an obviously unfavorable situation, temporarily retreating was the best plan. He did not want to force Garuten to stay. A peak beyond grade A pugilist had a lot of charging power. He was only a lord's avatar, so he could not hold the other party back. At the same time, he was a famous meatball, so Garuten's first target would definitely be Hela. Hela's instant death immunity was still on cooldown, so it would be even more dangerous to fight. Both of them had their own concerns and could not do anything to each other. After pausing, Han Xiao said, "Garuten will make a comeback. You still have to be careful. The chances of him targeting you are very high. Maybe we can take the initiative to attack." Hela's thoughts were always very firm. Take the initiative to attack? Let's see. Han Xiao shook his head. It was not impossible, but he needed to be more confident. The version 4.0 players were finally online, and he could finally get back on track to quickly level up. With his current strength, it would not be so easy to deal with Garuten. He hoped to complete 1 or even 2 promotions before dealing with this matter. Only then would he have more confidence. Becoming enemies with Garuten was not part of his plan. Han Xiao had kept a low profile for decades, making the outside world think that he had also reached a bottleneck. Once he fought with a peak beyond grade A, he would definitely expose his current strength. That old guy Manison would probably jump out and have fun again. I still have to complete the level 320 promotion first. This is the most important thing right now, Han Xiao thought. If he was not wrong, the worst-case scenario of this matter might have a very serious chain reaction. He had to increase his strength to deal with it. After ending the conversation, the Lord's avatar fell into a deep sleep again, and Hela returned to her post. Planet Phirai had already been reduced to ashes, and she commanded the fleet to head to another nearby planet to build a stronghold. On the other side, Garutan's fleet was returning to the stronghold planet. Garutan reclined on a tall throne, holding a huge cup that fit his size, and gulping down the specialty liquor of a certain race. More than 10 female descendants of different heights surrounded him. Some were treating his wounds with medical tools, some were trimming his body hair with scissors, and the rest were massaging his muscles. "Father, is it comfortable? Use more strength." Garutan wiped his lips, threw the empty cup to the side, looked down at the Calamity grade officer below the stairs, and asked coldly, "Is the casualty report out?" "It's out. Please take a look." A Calamity grade descendant walked up and handed over a communication terminal. Garutan opened the virtual screen and took a look. He could not help but snort angrily. "She actually killed 5 of my Calamity grades. Sooner or later, I'll kill Hela. And that bastard Black Star, how dare he be so tough? If not for the fact that I'm injured and not in peak condition, I would definitely tear apart his lord's avatar." Seeing Garutan's rage, no one dared to speak, as if they were treading on thin ice. "Don't think that I'm afraid of Black Star. He doesn't have the right to force me to take a step back. I blew up planet Phirai and slowed down their progress, which can be considered to have completed what Sorokin told me to do." Garutan snorted coldly. He chose to avoid Han Xiao for the time being because his condition was not good. Secondly, he had allies, so there was no need for him to fight Black Star alone. Thirdly, after calming down, he remembered his original goal, which was to help others test the waters. Therefore, there was a better way to get back at him. He remembered that Sorokin had said that Radiance and Ethereal wanted to get rid of Hela, so there was no need to do it personally. As he spoke, Garutan changed the topic and said with a deep voice, "A batch of people died. Let the family cultivate another batch of mixed-blood descendant. Do you want to go back and sow the seeds yourself? Just use the ones in the warehouse." Garutan waved his hand. His base camp was constantly producing pregnant women. After all, the efficiency of mating and reproducing was too low. There was a large amount of beyond-grade adeoxyribose that belonged to Garutan in the freezer of the base camp, which had extremely strong vitality and adaptability. Usually, it was mass-produced through artificial means and supplemented with compounds such as hormones to accelerate the maturation of the fetus. After so many years of hybridization experiments, he had long accumulated all kinds of hybridization combinations that could produce excellent offspring. He knew which species to pair with to produce offspring with special talent. Therefore, in his base camp, he had stored many females of excellent races to use as breeding medium for his offspring. As for the origins of these people, as a high and mighty beyond grade A, he naturally would not waste time dating so many people. Some of them were willing, but others might not be. Those who controlled the galactic black market were not clean people. At this time, Garutan suddenly coughed twice. "Father, your injuries," an officer said with a worried tone. "That Hela's Esper ability is very destructive and explosive. She actually managed to injure me." Garutan frowned. "I didn't feel anything during the battle, but my body feels a little strange now." As he said that, Garutan closed his eyes and directly checked his body's condition from the cellular level. Among the 5 superclasses, pugilists had the highest degree of control over their bodies. Everyone waited silently for a while. Suddenly, Garutin's eyes flew open, and his face paled in shock. He stood up abruptly and flung away all the female descendants lying on top of him. Damn it, her Esper ability can weaken the vitality of cells. Garutin's expression twisted, and he was completely enraged. Even when a large number of elite descendants died in Hela's hands, he had not been this angry. The vitality of cells was related to the number of times they divided, and this attribute was very secretive. Even a beyond grade A would not be able to detect it easily. Only now did he realize that his lifespan had been shortened. Not only was his lifespan affected, but his fertility was also closely related to the vitality of cells. His own fertility was very likely affected as well. The decrease in the vitality of deoxyribose would cause the quality of his offspring to decrease. Boom! In his rage, his aura suddenly erupted, and the pressure made all his descendants lie on the ground, trembling. Such an insidious Esper ability! Veins popped on Garutin's forehead, and his killing intent toward Hela was like a flood. He had never thought that this operation would actually reduce his lifespan. What a huge loss! Garutin's chest heaved up and down violently, and his breathing was extremely heavy. He almost had the urge to turn around and kill. Father, this time, a few descendants who were not strong enough were slammed onto the wall by the pugilist aura and hurriedly called for help. Seeing this, Garutin barely suppressed his anger and calmed down the violent pugilist aura. Get out! The many officers present heard this and hurriedly left the room. Everyone knew that they could not appear in front of their father when he was furious. Only Garutin was left in the room. He sat on the throne for a while before picking up the communicator and calling Sorokin. After 3 rings, the call was connected, and Sorokin appeared with a smile. Your Excellency Beast Ancestor, what's the situation? Garutin stared at him coldly for a while before slowly speaking. The matter has been resolved. I blew up planet Fireye and also completed the test of Hela. For this, many of my descendants died, and I was also angered by Black Star. Great, Your Excellency Beast Ancestor is indeed very reliable. I will compensate you for any losses. So, what's the result of the test? Hela's Esper ability is very dangerous and has a terrifying explosive force. Garutin recounted his discovery during the battle, and finally paused before saying in a deep voice. Her Esper ability also has a terrifying characteristic. As long as it hits a life form, it can reduce the vitality of the cells and reduce the target's lifespan. This discovery made me pay a huge price. Sorokin was taken aback, and his smile suddenly disappeared as his expression became serious. You're telling the truth? I shouldn't have told you. Wait for Radiance or Ethereal to make a move, let them find out that their lifespan has been reduced, and then blame it on your wrong information, Garutin said coldly. I understand. Sorokin narrowed his eyes. I hope you can tell Radiance and Ethereal truthfully. Don't play any tricks. Otherwise, even if I'm a shareholder of the Limitless Financial Group, I'll still beat you up. Garutin's eyes were cold. Don't worry, I have integrity in this regard. Sorokin nodded solemnly and hung up. Garutin casually threw away the communicator, his expression indifferent, and his eyes flashed with a piercing cold light. If Radiance and Ethereal were to know that Hela's Esper ability could reduce lifespan, 2 things might happen. First, because of fear, they would give up their plans against her. Second, because of fear, they would not let her live. According to his understanding of Radiance and Ethereal, there was a 99% chance that it would be the latter. If Hela had such an ability, Radiance and Ethereal would not have allowed her to grow. In his previous life, Hela belonged to the chaotic evil faction, no different from Esgod. She did not have any obvious inclination, so most people were not willing to provoke such a crazy woman. No one wanted to reduce their lifespan for no reason. However, the situation now was completely different. Hela was a member of the Black Star Corps, a poisonous thorn with an owner. She was no longer chaotic evil, and this poisonous thorn would only stab at the enemy. This caused the organizations and experts on the opposing side of the Black Star Corps to feel a strong threat. In terms of targeting top-tier combatants, Hela was equivalent to a terrifying slow-acting poison. The dark cloud of reducing lifespan hung over the heads of every enemy, and no one was willing to lose their life. No one wanted the opposing faction to have such a dangerous person, and even more so, they did not want to see her continue to grow. The existence of some super high-risk Esper abilities was a sin, and they had to be eliminated as soon as possible. Garuten was sure that as long as the news spread, most beyond grade as would not want to see such an Esper ability continue to exist in the universe. It would also help Radiance and Ethereal to strengthen their killing intent. Chapter 10:23. Everyone had their own way of survival. In the eyes of the various organizations, Sorokin was a miraculous existence. He was clearly someone who was jointly hired by Radiance, Ethereal, and the Galactic Black Market, but he slowly became the middleman for the information of several organizations. Under his operation, the results of Garuten testing Hela soon reached the hands of Radiance and Ethereal, which immediately attracted the attention of the upper echelons. They gathered their allies for a meeting. The main stronghold of the Arcane Church in the free competition zone was located in another star cluster. At this time, the projections of most of the Beyond Grade A allies were gathered, and there were also a few important officials who represented the official attitude. After reading the information about Hela, everyone's expression changed. Hela's Esper ability can shorten the lifespan of a Beyond Grade A? Tolian suddenly stood up, his face green. He was not a pugilist, so he had never been able to see the microscopic changes in his cells. Only now did he know what he had encountered. He had fought with Hela, and not only had he been defeated, he had also lost many years of his lifespan. He had even lost his underwear. Tolian regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. How could he be so unlucky to have met such an opponent? Fighting and shortening lifespan, who could stand that? Even the most belligerent maniac would be terrified. If he had known, he would not have agreed to fight with Hela. No, if he had known, he would not have gone to the Dragon Emperor. I'm so depressed. Everyone looked at him sympathetically and mourned for him for 3 seconds. Then, they ignored him and began discussing among themselves. I did not expect this new Beyond Grade A to have such a strange Esper ability. It's a bit like the power of death on the super high-risk Esper abilities list. Sun Hunter, this pocket-sized guy, sat on the table casually, giving off an imposing aura. I remember this is the ability of a certain primordial one. It actually appeared again. Yeah, I remember this information too. What's it called again? Kasui interrupted and said slowly, Nikki's, the one who controls death. She also has an elder sister nicknamed the Mother of All Things who can spread life force. Yes, it's these two. They're quite famous among the primordial ones. They were born in different civilizations and weren't related by blood, but they finally met each other in the boundless universe. Their extremely compatible Esper abilities allowed them to become sisters that transcended blood ties. What an artistic legend. It exudes the aura of the exploration era. Perfect. A Beyond Grade A exclaimed. This person's name was Lawrence, and his secondary occupation was that of an artist. He was dressed up in a variety of colors, and had a double impact on the eyes and the stomach. Aren't they sisters? Someone scratched their head. That's not it. After so many years, the rumors in the outside world have long been distorted. What is stored in our database is the truth. One of the upper echelons could not help but remind them, everyone, can we return to the problem of Hela? Photon, Sagman nodded and said with a deep voice, The power of death is a super high-risk esper ability that can harvest lives. If we sit back and watch Hela grow, if she loses control of her esper ability one day like Thousand Shadows, it will be a disaster for the entire universe. See, Spirit, Dylan clenched his teeth and said, that's not the main problem. The biggest problem is, she's from the Black Star Corps, our enemy. This ability is very dangerous. If we don't deal with it, when Hela grows up, we'll have to worry about this special threat when dealing with the Black Star Corps. Sector Gate, Taylor said. These Beyond Grade as had participated in the Battle of Planet Lighthouse and suffered at the hands of Han Shao, so they were the most hostile toward the Black Star Corps. They always wanted to ride on Black Star's head. Cisco hesitated for a moment before nodding. That's right. For us Beyond Grade as reducing our lifespan is too scary. Sun Hunter glanced at him and said, I don't think you need to worry about this. Cisco was stunned. What do you mean? According to the strength that Hela displayed when she fought Garuten, if you fight her, you'll probably be beaten to death. Therefore, reducing your lifespan is of no use to you. Psyker felt the deep malice of the world, and turned to join Tolian in shutting himself off. Stop fooling around, Kasui said calmly and looked at the few officials. What do the ethereal upper echelons think? The few officials looked at each other and said solemnly, the upper echelons hope to rope in Hela and make her our ally. If that doesn't work, they hope that everyone will take action and eliminate Hela. Everyone's eyes flashed, and they understood what the Arcane Church was thinking. Ordinary people would be killed by Hela in one hit, so reducing their lifespan was of no use to life forms below the Calamity grade. She was a killing weapon that was completely targeted at peak Beyond Grade as. Not only would it affect the current threat, but it would also affect the situation of roping in allies in the future. If Hela was in the enemy faction, even if she did not do anything, the new Beyond Grade as would have concerns when they joined the faction and would not be willing to face Hela, so it would not be good for them to recruit new allies. Although Hela was a member of the Black Star Corps, she had not joined an advanced civilization yet. The Arcane Church hoped to use her for themselves and control this killing weapon. This was something that Garuten did not expect. If they could not take her for themselves, Ethereal would destroy Hela. Not only that, all the Beyond Grade as present thought deeper. Hela's deterrence was only targeted at Beyond Grade as. Did the Arcane Church also want to use her to deter the entire Beyond Grade as? If it were any other time, no one would have such thoughts. However, everyone present had coincidentally participated in Han Zhao's meeting of the gods, and they could not help but think in that direction. Everyone suddenly fell silent, and many people felt conflicted. Kasui's expression did not change. He glanced at everyone and said, I feel that roping in Hela can be done immediately. As for eradicating her, we need to think about it slowly. Although we're all in the flickering world and it's convenient to mobilize, our movements will attract more attention. Furthermore, killing Hela will also provoke Black Star. It's best to wait and see what the Radiant Federation does. Don't forget, they also have this information and will definitely take action. I understand. The upper echelon nodded. The debt with Ninja has not been settled yet. This time, we do not wish to cooperate with the Radiant Federation. We do need to wait and see. However, when we decide to take action, I hope everyone will respond positively. No problem. Other than Cisco, the unlucky fellows from the Battle of Planet Lighthouse all expressed their opinions. They had wanted to take revenge on the Black Star Corps for a long time, and the opportunity was finally here. Kasui did not speak, but his eyes flickered. On the other side, the Radiant Federation was also holding a similar meeting, but the topic was very different from Ethereal. Hela's Esper ability is very dangerous. This is true, but dealing with her will definitely anger the Black Star Corps. It's not worth it, Hades said. One of the elders frowned. In the long run, Hela's threat is clearly greater. Angering the Black Star Corps is worth it. Are you sure? Hades asked. Have you forgotten about the 10,000 deity scepter? As soon as this was said, the elders of the Radiant Federation were stunned and fell into deep thought. The 10,000 deity scepter is also a threat to beyond grade and its priority is even higher than Hela's. I think this might be an opportunity. If we can make use of this opportunity to make a deal with Black Star and have him unlock the seal of the spacetime amber, it will be a profitable deal for us, Hades said. This time, Manison agreed. That's right. I think we need to consider Black Star's attitude. The 10,000 deity scepter is very important. Everyone could not help but look at him. Some were surprised, while others understood. Many beyond grade knew that Manison's attitude was from the perspective of the 10,000 deity scepter on the surface, but in reality, it was largely due to the influence of the meeting of the gods. Manison was the leader of pushing the beyond grade to be on the same front, and he valued Han Zhao's influence in the flickering world more than Han Xiao, hoping that he could build an information exchange platform for the same front. Thus, he did not want to anger him and cause him to quit. Speaking of which, if not for Han Xiao holding the meeting of the gods and talking about the situation of the Beyond Grade the Beyond Grade A allies of the Radiant Federation probably would not have hesitated at all. This could not be part of Black Star's plan, right? After thinking for a while, the Chief Elder tapped his walking stick and said, Indeed, if we can unlock the seal of the 10,000 deity scepter, we can temporarily put aside the problem of Hela, but it's almost impossible to succeed. After pausing for a while, he slowly added, The Arcane Church will definitely try to rope us in before getting rid of us. We can remind Black Star, but this bargaining chip is not enough. Black Star has the dynasty behind him, so he doesn't need our help in terms of military strength. Furthermore, he's a member of the dynasty, so he'll definitely be worried that we'll use the 10,000 deity scepter to deal with him after he releases it. After considering everything, he won't agree to a deal with us. Hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. If they were in Black Star's shoes, they would also not agree to help the enemy. The most important thing was that the bargaining chip Radiant had taken out was not enough. In fact, Radiant had always wanted to build a good relationship with Han Xiao and unlock the seal of the 10,000 deity scepter so that it could get rid of the state where it could only be seen but not touched. However, the evolutionary totem was related to the future of the civilization and was countless times more important than the 10,000 deity scepter. Thus, Radiant could only temporarily put aside the issue of the scepter and target the Red Empire and the Black Star Corps first. Now, Hela's problem made Radiant see an opportunity to make a deal with Black Star. That's why we need a bigger bargaining chip. Hades' eyes flashed. For example, Hela herself. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. What you're saying is that we should capture Hela alive and use her to make a deal with Black Star in exchange for unlocking the seal of the 10,000 deity scepter. The Chief Elder pondered for a while, and felt that it was a good idea. This way they would not kill anyone, would not offend Black Star, and would be able to unlock the seal of the 10,000 deity scepter. The success rate would be much higher than making a normal deal. This method was very flexible, and it seemed like a good idea. If they succeeded, Radiant would be the most profitable. They would finally be able to take off the 10,000 deity scepter and turn it into their own shape. On the other hand, Ethereal would be miserable. It seemed like Ethereal's loss had nothing to do with them. It was better to die than to die. After understanding this, everyone could not help but look at Hades, who had made the suggestion. You're such a slut. The Chief Elder coughed and said, Hela is good at dealing with life forms, so the best person to deal with her is a mechanic. Your Excellency, the Mecha Empire, I'm not interested in bullying a new Beyond Grade A, Manison interrupted. As a mechanic with countless aliases, he was of course not afraid of having his lifespan shortened by Hela. However, he was not willing to bully a new Beyond Grade A super. Old Manison could not wait for more new beyond grade as to appear. Alright, someone else will do it. The chief elder shook his head helplessly. They could not command Manison. This time, a beyond grade A could not help but shake his head. With so many beyond grade as targeting one person, the last one to receive such treatment was God, right? A new beyond grade A super is being targeted like this. Blame it on her bad luck. The free competition zone was currently in a state of chaos. The movements of local tyrants like the Black Star Corps attracted a lot of attention from the outside organizations. Very soon, the news of the armed conflict between the Black Star Corps and Garutan spread. The planet Phyri chosen by the Black Star Corps was blown up, so they could only take a detour and choose a new stronghold. Garutan did not have an easy time either, losing many of his subordinates. Both parties retreated in the end, so it could be considered a draw. The result of the battle between Hela and Garutan was normal. She was not a match for a pinnacle beyond grade A, but it was said that Garutan also suffered some injuries. This was not something an ordinary new beyond grade A could do. Many organizations secretly raised Hela's combat strength in their files, thinking that among all the new beyond grade as in this batch, Hela might be the strongest. The information about Hela's ability was only circulated among the 3 universal civilizations and a very small number of high-level organizations. The outside world did not know about it, and most people did not know that the upper echelons were already in turmoil. With the Black Star Corps and Garutan taking the lead, the outside organizations that had conflicts with each other no longer restrained themselves and started fighting one another for resources. They no longer had to worry about the dynasty's attitude. The chain reaction caused by this battle was that the number of armed conflicts in the free competition zone increased rapidly, and the security situation declined like an avalanche. However, overall, there were still countless empty areas in the 4th phase, and there was still a lot of space to explore. Thus, the level of conflict was not too intense, far from the peak in his previous life. The army player guilds that left the main force also began to display their subjective initiative, participating in the competition in the free competition zone as official organizations. Somewhere in the border star system of the Emerald Star Cluster, a small fleet was slowly moving forward. The outer armor was engraved with the emblems of different organizations, which were the guild emblems. After the army was registered, they could customize their organization name and logo. These guilds could then openly use their own emblems. This fleet included the official guilds of Long Sky, Rivervale, Thunderstorm, and many other well-known clubs. In the current version, the efficiency of the players earning money was much higher. It was not a problem for them to grit their teeth and save up enough money to buy a normal spaceship. The guild funds of the first-tier clubs were even more abundant. Together with the 30% price that Han Shao offered, many guild organizations bought small fleet. At this time, the core members of the various guilds were gathered on the battleships of Long Sky for a meeting. There were also many pro players in the room. We're not far from planet Harker. We'll arrive in about half an hour. Let's discuss our plan, the guild leader of Sky Territory, Jade Green Sky, said casually. Twinkle Fried Rice took out the memo and read it aloud. Planet Harker has plenty of resources, and it's currently occupied by 7 small organizations, 3 financial groups, 2 private armed forces, and 2 star system civilization gathering teams are unable to chase each other away. They can only fight for rich resource locations. Our goal is to enter planet Harker, make friends with the financial groups, and build a resource stronghold on this planet. The most important thing is how to negotiate with these financial groups, Sleepy Winter said. Leave this to me, Maple Moon volunteered. I know what to say. Everyone nodded and gave a few words of encouragement. Under Han Zhao's guidance, the army players were the first to understand the main point of this version, which was to interact with the NPC organizations in the name of the organization. After going through so many versions, The players already knew that NPCs' actions were no different from real people. Every word and action of NPCs would cause reactions, and anything could happen. The freedom of NPCs was off the charts. Therefore, the higher one's charisma was, the easier it would be to negotiate. There would always be people who were good at negotiating in the guild. As a storyline player, Maple Moon was passionate about interacting with the NPCs. The new system of the army allowed these guilds to be semi-independent. With such a large amount of freedom, these guilds began to display their subjective initiative, actively analyzing information, looking for opportunities, and doing their own thing. It was very safe to follow the main group, but their movements were restricted. Many players had the idea of being the leader rather than the tail. This was exactly what Han Shao wanted to see. He had issued many solo missions in an attempt to get the army players to spread out, infiltrate more territories, expand their advantages, and dig for new benefits, instead of just following him and drinking the soup. These few guilds moved together to increase their own weight. They did not follow the main group but chose to go to Planet Harker to compete with the small organizations. This was to maximize their own advantages. Currently, most of the players in the guild were Grade B, and Grade B players were considered the backbone of the universe. They were even more influential in front of the small organizations. Furthermore, the guild was a subsidiary organization of the Black Star Corps. Black Star's name had a high influence on the small organizations. It was a good opportunity to borrow the prestige of the backer to increase their bargaining chip in the negotiation with the NPC organizations. After a while, the fleet slowly slowed down. They were getting closer and closer to Planet Harker. There were scattered defense fleets floating outside the atmosphere, belonging to different organizations. Seeing the players' fleet, the defense forces of Planet Harker activated their combat stance and greeted them warily, sending a communication request. Mad Blade patted Maple Moon's shoulder and said softly, "I'll leave it to you." Maple Moon exhaled and let her lips tremble as a warm-up. She was eager to give it a try. Fong Sun, watch me trick them. P.S. Weibo has finally been verified. Those who are interested can search for Chi page and follow Weibo. Chapter 10:24. Maple Moon picked up the call, and a mercenary appeared on the screen. His eyes were filled with caution and curiosity. "This is the armed guard fleet of the New Moon Financial Group. I'm the commander, Feldman. Who are you?" Hearing this, Maple Moon was overjoyed. The players of Long Sky, Rivervale, and Storm had investigated the situation on Planet Harker beforehand. The 7 organizations had occupied this planet and were competing with each other. They guarded the planet from different directions and forced the other organizations to retreat. They did not want more people to share the resources. If they encountered an armed organization or a star system civilization, the difficulty of negotiation would increase. If they encountered a financial group directly, things would go smoothly. Of course, with the players' current abilities, they could not investigate this situation on their own. The source of the information was naturally the Black Star Corps, which allowed the players to check real-time information about the flickering world. This was the privilege of being an army player. Maple Moon calmed herself down and said, "This is the joint armed force of the Sky Territory, Storm Guild, Rivervale Guild, and other organizations." Feldman was puzzled. He had never heard of any of these organizations before, and he did not recognize the symbol of these player guilds. Who knew where this small organization popped out from? Feldman shook his head and said with a deep voice, "Planet Harker does not welcome any foreign organizations. Please leave immediately, or we will take necessary measures." "You've misunderstood. We're not here to enter Planet Harker. You can treat us as mercenaries." Maple Moon took out the speech she had prepared. "Didn't you post a recruitment notice in the Flickering World regional channel? We plan to work with your financial group and accept armed employment. Feldman was stunned and a little surprised. The thing that the flickering world did not lack the most was jobs. Almost all organizations were recruiting soldiers, and the attraction of high-level organizations was the strongest. For a small financial group like them, the probability of recruiting people in the free competition zone was too low. He did not expect that this group of people were actually mercenaries. However, why didn't they contact us in advance and come here directly? It should be a small organization that does not know the rules of this industry. Feldman felt that he had guessed correctly and shook his head. He estimated that such an organization would not be very strong, so he did not have much hope. However, the other party was still a force to be reckoned with. After a pause, he asked casually, "Sure, tell us about your organization first. We need to consider if you're worth hiring." Maple Moon clenched her fists excitedly and pretended to be calm. "Okay, our joint armed forces have a total of 7,000 espers, of which 5,800 are Grade B members." Wait, what's that? Feldman thought he had heard wrong. The scale of 7,000 supers was not much, but the problem was that 5,800 of them were Grade B supers. Even Planet Harker did not have so many B-class warriors. From Han Zhao's perspective, Grade B supers were no different from cannon fodder. However, in the eyes of ordinary galactic organizations, Grade B supers were undoubtedly the backbone of a large mercenary army and the main combat members. In Han Zhao's early years in the mercenary world, a rank B was already considered an expert. In the eyes of ordinary people, he was a big shot. For example, before Han Zhao took Sky Ring and Purple Gold to the top, the number of Grade B supers in the past was only a few hundred. If not for the fact that they had 2 calamity grades, their combat power would only be a fraction of theirs. Could it be that she's lying to me? Feldman's expression was suspicious. This was the only thought he had. Official guilds like Long Sky and Rivervale had a large number of peripheral members. It was very easy to gather a few thousand people. Most of the players had already reached Grade B when version 4.0 opened. Those who had not reached Grade B were mainly newcomers or Smurf. Maple Moon purposely ignored him and continued. At the same time, we're a subsidiary organization of the Black Star Corps. Previously, we were the Immortals under Black Star's command. Wait a moment. You're saying that you're a subsidiary organization of the Black Star Corps, and an Immortals at that? Feldman's entire body trembled, and he was dumbfounded. Was this not a small, nameless organization? They actually had such a huge background. They were Black Star's people. His first reaction was disbelief. In his eyes, Black Star was an unreachable giant of the universe. The New Moon Financial Group that he worked for was nothing in front of the Black Star Corps. Furthermore, the Immortals were the famous trump cards of the Black Star Corps. Why would they accept their employment? Feldman hurriedly logged onto the Black Star Corps' public website to check the information of these organizations. However, the results gave him a huge shock. Sky Territory, Storm Cloud, and Rivervale were all semi-independent subsidiary organizations of the Army. Their members were all Immortals, and they had only registered not long ago. Beside Maple Moon, Frenzied Sword and the other professional players, as well as the core members of the various guilds, were inwardly delighted when they saw Feldman's shocked expression. They only felt a sense of comfort. Just by using the name of Black Star, this guy was shocked. It was so comfortable to have a backer. Because of the unparalleled authenticity, the source of interest for the players was extremely rich. Looking at the NPCs' reactions to their actions, the players felt a sense of accomplishment. The reason why they had directly come to apply was to use the name of Tiger Bark Tree, borrowing the prestige of the Black Star Corps to increase their own influence. A normal employment relationship would not allow them to get a share of the planet's resources, but with the name of Black Star, the conditions could be negotiated. The benefits of the army were really unbelievably good. Many guild leaders even wanted to support Han Shao at home. Not monopolizing the planet but finding other organizations to cooperate with was mainly limited by fund. Mining equipment required money, and mining also required manpower. If they found an NPC organization to cooperate with, they would not have to bear this part of the cost. Although the players were individually strong, in terms of fleets, they were far inferior to the NPC organizations. Thus, they were sincere in cooperating. Seeing that the other party did not respond, Maple Moon could not help but cough and remind, "How is it? Do you think we're good enough? If you don't want to hire us, we'll leave." As if waking up from a dream, Feldman panicked. "No, no, no. It's our honor to hire you. Please follow me and descend. I'll immediately inform the higher-ups of the organization." As soon as he finished speaking, the interface of all the players present rang. When they opened it, their spirits were lifted, and they cheered softly. "It's here, the mission is triggered. Gandhi is beautiful. Haha, I knew the plan would work. Sure enough, this is how it works." What appeared on the interface was not a hiring mission but a faction mission called Seizing Power on Planet Harker. It indicated that they could choose a faction and help them expel the organizations on other planets. It was a triggered storyline-type mission. Very soon, the player's fleet followed Feldman and landed on a base on Planet Harker. As soon as everyone got off the spaceship, they saw a group of officers wearing the New Moon Financial Group's uniform waiting at the dock. They had anxious and excited expressions. When the players stepped onto the dock, the people of the New Moon Financial Group took the initiative to welcome them. The leader walked toward Maple Moon and extended his hand with a very warm attitude. "Hello, I'm the person in charge of the exploration of Planet Harker. You can call me Smetic. I represent Planet Harker to welcome everyone. Your name is quite unique." The corners of Maple Moon's mouth twitched. She resisted the urge to smile and shook his hand with a straight face. Smetic did not understand, but he did not mind. He warmly said, "You've come at the right time. We really need the help of mercenaries. I only have one question: are you here to apply for this job on behalf of the Black Star Corps, or on your own?" "Both." Maple Moon's answer was ambiguous. This question was not within her expectations, but it seemed to be more beneficial to her. "Then, let's talk about the remuneration. Do you have any conditions?" Smetic asked. Maple Moon exchanged glances with Mad Blade and the others. She nodded and said, "We hope it's not just a simple employment. In addition to the remuneration, we also want to cooperate in the development of Planet Harker." Cooperation? Smetic's heart trembled. He thought of many things in an instant. If the Black Star Corps wanted to occupy Planet Harker, these people would be the vanguard force. In that case, the New Moon Financial Group would not be able to compete at all. Currently, Planet Harker could accommodate 7 forces precisely because they were all little brothers and were evenly matched in strength. If a giant were to appear, there would be no need for them to compete. They would just pack up and scram, obediently wash the planet clean, and be done with it. However, Smetic thought about it again. This was not necessarily a bad thing. It seemed that he could ride on the coattails of the Black Star Leg Hair. Currently, the 2 most powerful civilizations on Planet Harker were the 2-star system-level civilizations. However, the planet only had the other party's collection team, so they could still be in a stalemate. If the other civilization's main force came, the New Moon Financial Group would have no choice but to leave. However, if they could obtain the protection of these immortals, it would be equivalent to borrowing the protection of the Black Star Corps. Furthermore, as the competition became more intense, there might be other organizations coming to Planet Harker in the future. Having one more backer seemed to be very beneficial. Thinking of this, Smetic made a decision and nodded heavily. "No problem. We'll draft the specific terms and conditions. Once it's done, I'll show it to you. Is that okay?" Okay. Maple Moon nodded. She was only in charge of negotiations, so she did not understand the terms and conditions. However, it did not matter. The official guild of the professional clubs had talents in this area. The guild president was considered a mid-level manager of the club, so he still had some knowledge. It was not a problem to look at the terms and conditions. At the very least, they could search for a template in the quantum network for comparison. Alternatively, they could just spend some money to ask Philip to check it for them. This was the advantage of being in the army. As long as they spent money, they could get almost any service. Spending money was indeed the strongest superpower. The New Moon Financial Group cleared out an area for Long Sky, Rivervale, and the other guilds to rest and reorganize. The next day, the two sides reached a consensus and signed a formal cooperation agreement. After signing the agreement, the players immediately triggered the corresponding employment missions. Currently, there were a lot of missions related to Planet Harker in their mission list. Some were triggered by themselves, some were issued by the New Moon Financial Group, and some were issued by Han Shao. For example, find a planet to build a resource collection point. This was to encourage the players to spread out like dandelions. There were so many missions for the same thing. If they completed all of them, they would receive extremely generous rewards. After signing the agreement, Maple Moon and the others found Smedic and took the initiative to make a suggestion. We're partners now. You haven't announced our origins, so the other forces don't know about our strength and identity. This is our advantage, so I hope to take action immediately. We'll carry out an armed raid to seize the resource base. Smedic thought for a while and nodded. You're right. Where do you want to attack? Maple Moon opened the holographic map of Planet Harker and pointed at a few locations. They were the large resource bases of the other organizations on Planet Harker. You want to snatch so many resource bases at the same time? Smedic stuttered. Don't worry, we're confident, Hao Tian interrupted. In the galactic battlefield, fleets were very important. Snatching resource bases was the ground battlefield, and the supers were the focus. They had more Grade B supers than the entire Planet Harker combined. Fighting on multiple fronts was not a problem at all. Then we'll do as you say. My troops will do their best to cooperate. Smedic secretly decided to hold on to this leg hair tightly. The Ursa civilization was a star system civilization in the Black Hole Edge. They participated in the free competition in the Flickering World. One of their collection teams was one of the 7 organizations on Planet Harker. They were the strongest and had built a few resource bases on the planet. At the edge of a canyon there was a base. Floating collection equipment rose and fell in the canyon, mining the unique minerals there. Transport vehicles were constantly transporting resources to the warehouse. There were a large number of Ursa soldiers in the base, and there were tanks patrolling the surroundings. There were also various turrets and traps set up outside. There were also small battleships circling the sky. The defense was tight. Somewhere in the base, 2 men in officer uniforms walked slowly, inspecting the base. I heard that a small fleet arrived on Planet Harker yesterday. The New Moon Financial Group let them in? One of the muscular figures asked with a deep voice. He was the person in charge of this base, a mid-level officer of the Ursa civilization called Hundajab. The other person was the captain of the super force stationed in the base, a Grade B super. He was said to be a person specially recruited for the Flickering World. Hearing this, he curled his lips and casually said, "It should be the reinforcements recruited by the New Moon Financial Group." The defense fleet took a picture of their fleet mark. I've checked, and there are no files on those organizations in the Mercenary Alliance. They're probably just some small fries. The Player Guild was a subsidiary organization of the Army. Han Shao did not register them in the Mercenary Alliance with the intention of turning the Army into a platform similar to the Mercenary Alliance. Thus, they could only check the Army's files on the Army's website. The player guild was not well known at the moment, and the Ursa Civilization's collection team did not know their origins. Naturally, they did not know the correct way to check. Hundajab coldly said, "The New Moon Financial Group has reinforcements. They'll probably make a move." "Do you think their target will be us?" "Impossible," Hundajab said decisively. "The New Moon Financial Group doesn't have the gut." "Are you sure?" Hundajab's face was full of confidence. "Of course. This is the most heavily guarded base. Not only do we have a large number of defensive measures, but we also have more than 70 Grade B supers stationed here. If the New Moon Financial Group has a brain, they won't dare to attack my base." Boom! Before he could finish his sentence, an explosion sounded outside the base. The ground shook, and the two of them staggered a step back. "What's going on?" Hundajab was shocked. He hurriedly boarded a floating vehicle and rose into the air to observe the direction of the explosion. At this moment, a large number of anti-gravity ground vehicles bearing the New Moon Financial Group's insignia were rapidly approaching. These vehicles were equipped with shields and electromagnetic weapons. As they charged towards the entrance of the base, they repeatedly exchanged fire with the turrets outside the base. The sound of cannons ringing out continuously filled the air. "Enemy attack! Everyone, return to your posts!" The base's alarm immediately sounded. Hundajab was both shocked and furious, his face ashen. "The New Moon Financial Group dares to attack me?" He had just made a judgment a second ago, and the enemy had arrived the next second. His face was very ugly. Seeing this, the super captain beside him knew not to provoke his superior and said, "I'll lead the supers to meet them." "Okay." Hundajab nodded heavily. The super captain went to organize the troops, leaving Hundajab alone on the vehicle. He coldly stared at the enemy troops that were getting closer and closer to the base, and his face regained its confidence. "You actually dare to target me? Looks like I'll have to teach you a painful lesson." Very soon, the New Moon Financial Group's ground forces rushed past the outer perimeter of the base. The base's ground forces also took the initiative to attack, and the supers followed to intercept the enemy. Both sides exchanged fire while rapidly closing the distance. Just as they were about to collide, a sudden change occurred. The doors of the first batch of vehicles of the New Moon Financial Group suddenly opened, and figures jumped out one after another. There were about 100 of them, and as they landed, they rolled forward due to inertia. However, in the process of rolling, the bodies of these 100 people suddenly swelled up, turning into biochemical aberrations several times their size. Their speed increased explosively, and they brazenly charged into the base's ground forces. Kaboom! These biochemical aberrations braved the cannon fire and charged forward. Their skin was thick, and their strength was boundless. Their huge palms constantly swept out, sending all the vehicles in their way flying. The Black Star Corps badge, Evolution, which was modified from the Ovidan badge, was also given a 30% discount. The guild bought it in bulk and distributed it to the players. 100 players who had entered the Extreme Evolution, Aberration Estate were a sharp weapon, and they instantly tore apart the base's ground forces. Hundajab's face sank and he immediately ordered, "Have the supers attack and get rid of these monsters." After the order was issued, the super captain led thousands of supers into the battlefield. Most of them were Grade C or D, and at the front were dozens of Grade B supers, acting as the arrowheads. On the other side, over 1,000 players of the New Moon Financial Group also appeared, and they also charged. A medium-sized supers battle was about to break out. Seeing that the players were at a disadvantage in terms of numbers, Hundajab smiled. "The number of supers is only a quarter of ours. There are only 1,000 of them. They're finished." Just as this thought flashed through his mind, the supers of both sides brazenly clashed. However, the result was completely different from what he had expected. He was so shocked that his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets, and his face was filled with disbelief. Every one of the thousands of players unleashed their B-class combat power. In an instant, they gained the absolute upper hand and slaughtered the enemies who were several times their number. Seeing this scene, Hundajab's face changed greatly, and he was shocked. How can there be so many grade B supers? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.